Breaking news.
Take a look at what happened.
I got you, sir. I got you, sir.
Let me get my shoes, sir.
Hold that in your head. It's bloody.
So we gotta move to the bus. Let me get my shoes.
Okay, my shoes down. My shoes.
Watch out.
Some type of experience. And let me be unequivocal about something. This is a security failure of epic, historic proportions. That there was some type of explosive noise. The former president had to be tackled and taken off stage by a Secret Service with blood appearing to come from his head. That a crowd of thousands at a presidential rally had to hit the ground, some of them colliding with each other, equipment falling on their heads and our heads at one point. No matter what this ends up being, this was a security failure at an event that is secured by the U.S. Secret Service and any number of other law enforcement agencies where everybody in the space had to be screened and wanted by metal detectors and officers. It's just calamitous as a failure. And let me be unequivocal about something. This is a security failure.
I'm on the phone with you. One of my
historic
colleagues is on the phone with the local district attorney in that. Lester, while I'm on the phone with you, one of my colleagues is on the phone with the local district attorney in that county who tells NBC News that the alleged shooter, the person they believe responsible for this event, is in fact deceased. So again, to repeat, the local district attorney in the area where the Trump rally is telling one of our colleagues right now that in fact the alleged shooter, the person they believe to be responsible for this, is deceased. We do not yet have a name or identity of that individual. We don't know their background, where they may have come from, any sort of personal motivations. That's information we're still trying to gather. But that's the headline. The second component of this, 3 senior U.S. law enforcement officials tell myself and colleague Jonathan Deans that there appear to have been, or they're looking into whether or not several other individuals were shot that were in the crowd. Those are not individuals suspected to be involved in this. Those were either rally goers or bystanders, but they're looking into whether at least 2 other individuals were shot as well. So that's the latest update that would seem to indicate to us a couple of things. One, they believe they know who did this. They believe they know where they were, potentially what they were using, and they can now start to do a lot of detailed investigative work.
So that gets you all up to speed on the events of the last hour. The campaign stopped in Pennsylvania, and there was an assassination attempt on President Trump. We haven't had anything like this since President Reagan. Many of you weren't even alive when it occurred. I've watched as the events unfolded here. I've seen it as it's happened. As you can tell, I've been staying abreast of it and staying informed for all the pertinent details. And if somebody says something here, if someone says something or asks me about my thoughts on it there, I would say, well, certainly it's very unfortunate. When you start whipping up in political elections, this kind of thing happens from more uncivil parts of society here. That kind of thing occurs, but as far as my thoughts on it and everything right there, well, Jason, do you have some statements to make on this? And my statement to make on this is, it may sound a little indelicate, but I must say, Jason, you said tonight you're going to talk about reparations, but this clearly is going to take precedent over that. Actually, no, it is not going to take precedent over that. Jason, there's a pandemic threatening the world. Cut the check. There's a war in Ukraine. Cut the check. The bombs are falling. Cut the check. The answer is going to be the same no matter what the situation is, no matter what occurs. We will not take our eye off the ball. The Black Channel and Reparations is live. Unapologetic, unadulterated, and absolutely uncompromising. Greetings, brothers and sisters from around the world, and welcome back to the home, the haven, the stronghold, and the everlasting super fortress of intelligent black thought. We are the Black Media, and this is the Black Channel. And I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, the voice of Black America, the Black Authority, broadcasting to you live from the only historically black college and university of higher education and learning in the cosmos. You are, of course, welcome to join us. And join us you shall, because on tonight's program, yes, I mean, there are events occurring, but let me be very, very clear. Events come and go. Blackness is forever. So yes, I am up to speed and abreast of what's happening. I am not at all ignorant of it. My response will remain unchanged. Donald Trump right now is in a hospital somewhere being tended to. He is obviously still alive. Certainly he was injured, but he's far from dead. Will there be political repercussions from this? Absolutely. Will there be social repercussions from this? Almost certainly. Are we going to change the subject tonight because of what's going on over there? Hell no! Let other people go around chasing views and chasing a couple of extra views. I said we're discussing reparations tonight. So the only thing folks can do right now is speculate on a number of different things. This is not a speculation zone. This is a result zone. We came here to discuss the only thing that matters, and I'm just showing you in real time, nothing's going to take my eye off the ball. No event that is occurring. There will be no breaking in special news. This is the only news that matters. This will be the only one that matters. We can talk about the rest of what y'all discussing at a later date. Waiting for details? Anyway, we'll discuss everything else y'all talking about at a later date. But right now, we said we're going to discuss reparations. We're going to deal with that, and that's where we going to be. So if you want to go listen to other folks sit up here and flap their gums and make their opinions, go ahead and do that. Everybody and their mama is on live right now talking about that, and they don't have any more information than they had before. So they'll just sit around giving their opinions. Well, let them go ahead and do that. We do things differently here. We do it differently, and that's the way it's going to stay. What I'm going to do here tonight is, as promised, I mentioned this to you all almost 2 weeks ago, right here on this website. I mentioned it to you here 2 weeks ago. Let me go ahead and throw this up on the screen for you so you can see it. When I asked you all, I said, you know what? So many people are calling up and asking things about reparations, and I kind of feel like I'm going to be forced in a situation where I have to, they keep asking the same questions. I'm going to have to stop what I'm doing so we can go ahead and deal with that. As you all can see here, we got hundreds of comments about it. Hundreds. So what we're going to do here is we are going to start on that. And by the way, I want my chat room to stay focused. Some folks, if they want to be professional comedians or amateur comedians, if you want to talk about something other than reparations tonight, there's plenty of other YouTube channels, Twitter Spaces, and everything else that you can go direct your attention toward. So you go ahead and do that. We are going to be discussing reparations tonight. So the chat room and everything else needs to get on code and get on topic. So I will give my mods here to let them know, by the way, they got 60 seconds to anything about Trump and all the rest of that stuff. We just dealt with that. Reparations. If you're so worried about Trump, There's a bunch of other YouTube channels, a bunch of other Twitter channels. If you want to talk about something other than reparations, go over there. If you don't want to discuss reparations tonight, get on over there. There's plenty of them. Megyn Kelly is on, and everybody else. Go watch them. So my mods, in 60 seconds, if they're still talking about Trump, show them the door. All right, discussing reparations to go ahead and deal with all your questions here. Some folks here didn't have the right questions, but we'll see about that. And we are going to go down the line so that we can deal with all your questions. I might even open up the telephone lines, depending on how things go here. Will our cash reparations payments be based on the free labor of our ancestors that began in 1555 or 1619? Will our payments include interest for our suffering from 1865 until the present day? Well, certainly, first you have to establish, because you don't have any real way of being able to aggregate your families and whatnot, your claim is going to be the same as everybody else's. You are the person who is going to be the recipient of that. So basically, we're going to be looking at the time frame of which there was a United States of America, which would not be 1555. So first and foremost, your claim is against a government. You can't make a claim against a government that is no longer in existence. That's why all the ancient Kemet people, the folks talking about, we were slaves in Egypt. Don't black folk owe us? No, because that government is gone. The same really applies in a number of different areas there on the continent of Africa, for example. But the government of the United States of America that enslaved us is very much still in existence. Very much still in existence. So you would start from the establishment of the United States continental government, this democratic republic. You would start there. Technically speaking, you can start from 1776 and move forward. Will our payments include interest for our suffering from 1865 until the present day? Well, yeah, that's the whole point of it. That's the whole point. The system of slavery against the descendants of American slaves morphed itself. So yes, you're making a claim against all of that. How many years do you think it would take to stabilize our new communities to the point that FBA newborns are born into post-reparations and not born into poverty? Well, technically speaking that's not really something we would project on. The real thing is first things first. I want everyone to understand this. First things first. First, we get what's due us. As far as projecting all those other things in the future, what happens after that, you need to have a plan in place for you and yours. You need to have some financial education in place for you and yours. But as far as projecting for whole communities and whatnot, that's a speculative thing. First things first, because you haven't even gotten the first step done. Make sure you're straight with you and yours in the event of that. How many states should be reserved as sovereign land for us? The Amish, I think he meant A-M-I-S-H, and Indians have a society within America somewhat unbothered by the government. Shouldn't the same be an option for FBA? So do you see what I mean? Speculative questions. That's not reparations. We're talking about cash reparations, so that's not it. Will we as seasoned senior citizens, black citizens, ever see these reparations? And if so, how would it be distributed? We will be on the job until it is done. So I cannot tell you when it will happen. I will tell you it will happen. Jason, when? We will be here until it does. There is no expiration date. And we are not saying, well, if I don't get it, because here's the question. It doesn't matter what you don't get. We are here. We're not sending any signals to anybody else. There's a time frame. There is no time frame except right now. That's the time frame, which is why our vote, our political thinking, our ideology, our code of conduct, everything is in the present day. Everything's in the present day. There's another issue here. Like I say, when you allow folks to ask questions, they just go off on tangents. So you got to be careful about that. You have to be careful about that. We got folks going on tangents here. How can we galvanize? I think you meant galvanize without the D. Develop enough people with the right mindset and approach to get reparations. We're doing it right now. We're doing it right now. How can we get reparations? We're not making political donations nor have any leverage. Okay, the very fact that you've gone from not talking about it at all to it's a national question. So folks here who are just way behind and they're thinking like they're failed relatives, they just walk around in circles. So that kind of happens. Should a national program be implemented to place the majority of our labor under employers who are likewise of the emancipated? I believe blacks working for whites is the number one vestige of slavery. So, folks, that's speculative. That's not about reparations. It's speculating forward. So before you speculate forward, you really need to have it in your head. Hey, what am I doing here? That's not the reparations discussion. I don't want folks to get involved in intellectual masturbation where they setting up whole kingdoms of Wakanda. You haven't gotten the first step accomplished yet. You're focused like a fire beam, like a laser beam on step one. You focus on that one with a general idea where you're going for step two, but you don't sit up here and skip past step one and step two and then go leap straight to step 8. And then, well, how will the community look here? No. Reparations. We aren't focused on reparations. We're focused on getting that. All right, folks, here is another misguided question here. If everyone who listens to you emailed the White House stating that substantial cash reparations of the descendants of American slaves before November 2024 would earn my vote for President Biden, what do you anticipate would result? Nothing. They would ignore that. If they lose the election, they're going to ignore it. That's the whole point, is they're going to keep a stiff upper lip until they can't take anymore. So that's what will happen. 2024, if they lose the election, it's going to bruise them, but they're going to keep marching as long as they can, which is what, by the way, I've answered all this previously here before. So, folks, that's why I'm doing this on the night's program. We've already mentioned this before, but no, if we set up here and sit in front of the place, that's not going to change their current behavior. What they want to see is, are we going to remain consistent? And when that occurs, and if they lose and keep losing, now you've got their attention because you backed up your demand for reparations, and now they are now suffering tangible consequences. Talk is not going to do that. For anybody who mentions anything off of topic tonight here, you're going to be timed out for 24 hours. We are not discussing Trump or anything else. If you're late, that's your problem. So to my mods, if they're off topic, let's go ahead and suspend them for the next day. Since they want to show up and play with themselves, we are on code tonight. If that bothers you, there's the door. Do you have suggestions on how to force the issue locally in our community, locally in our cities? The first step here is for hearts and minds. The first steps is that we talk to each other. Jason Black is one guy on YouTube. Yes, I have a national reach, but folks need to hear this anywhere and everywhere. When you travel across this country, and whether it's Biden or Trump, you see the flags, people are talking about it. They go to work on that. So the idea that, okay, well, let's just go ahead and rev Jason up enough and Jason will get it done. No, everybody needs to get together for that. Everyone needs to get together for that. Not just one person. So what's my suggestion for how to force the issue locally? You locally. If you believe that you're in a place where that's the thing, you locally. The first thing I would do is I would recommend to you that you need to get together with, if you have a legal community, because there's the real problem that we've had. We've had to rely on the activist community because the legal community has been summarily worthless. But the first thing I would tell you is, yeah, you want to get folks together locally. If you have radio programs locally, television stations locally, this is the kind of thing that you make noise for, but also with your legal community, that's the next thing you do. So if you're talking at a local level, that's the next thing you do. If you're going to do something like that. In California, they just went straight to the state level. Fantastic. Great. Wonderful. Some states make it easier to petition for things in that manner, but we should have a legal presence everywhere to the extent that you can. To the extent that you can. Okay, you see what I mean here? Can we also demand the Vatican open their archives? You can try. I mean, you can certainly try. Those of you going back to the 1500s, like I say, folks, the claim is being made against the United States government, not against hither and thither. So, to the extent you could, can you get the Vatican to open their archives? Would it matter? You'd have to get the Italian. They're not a United States government. How are you going to put pressure on an overseas government? So it's one thing for us to put pressure on the government here. It's nothing to put it on somewhere else. Even if you deal with the archdiocese and whatever in America, that's going to be iffy in that regard. So sure, can you get them to open it? Certainly. Some of y'all are going back to 1500s and not, I guess that's why I'm doing the program here tonight. We're not making the claim against when slavery, quote unquote, started. We're making the claim against a specific government that has a specific policy that we can prove unequivocally that this government here, which is still in existence, is liable for. We're not making a claim for racism, and we are not making a claim for global slavery or the transatlantic slave trade. That is not what we're doing. When you start talking about, well, what about the Vatican? Well, now you're including Jamaicans and Haitians and anybody else. And the whole point is we don't have a claim to defend them. We don't have standing there. Our standing is in the United States. That's our legal standing. Not for the transatlantic slave trade, not for racism, but for our lineage as the descendants of American slaves in that system of American slavery. Should there be a lump sum or continuous ongoing payments like an annuity? Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Once reparation payments are secured, what's the next step? Why don't you take care of the first step first? Looking past the first step. This is like a boxer sitting up here. He's only fought 4 fights. He's looking past his next 6 opponents and planning what he's going to do with the championship belt. Why don't you win the fight you have tonight? Win the fight that you have tonight. Win this one. And if you get a title shot, then focus on the title shot. Don't focus on whoever's after the title. You're already counting winning the title. And who am I going to fight after I win the belt? Win the belt first. So win the fight you got in front of you tonight, then win the next one. And then if you do get a championship title fight, focus on that one. So folks, keep focused on where you're at, not fantasizing about where you're going to be. And make sure you have yourself together as an individual, because if you have a 400 credit score and cable television in your children's names, and every dollar you get flies out of your hands, and you don't know how to turn $1 into 2, or much less have a concept of investing anything, it doesn't matter how you get yours in a lump sum or every year, you're going to trick it off regardless. Hi, Jason. Will every Black American qualify for it, even newborn kids in 2024? Number 2, how will we be paid one lump sum, yearly or monthly? My short answer to that would be that it is owed to you the same way it is to everyone else. So if everyone else, regardless of their age, is eligible for that, or there is a factor that you're liable for what you owe them, that's what you go off of. For example, if you had parents who were murdered in the Holocaust, if you were 10 years old, well, you are a beneficiary. So no, age is not going to be what we look at. Now, maybe it needs to be held in escrow or whatever until they're grown. Okay, but no, your age is going to be, age should not be a factor because it hasn't been a factor for everyone else. You don't get to just, okay, everybody who's of a certain age. How are you paid, lump sum, yearly and monthly? We already covered that. Doesn't matter. Choose whatever you want. Nehesu Bantu. So you know this is going to be a long nigga post here. It's like, okay. Cornerstones and questions regarding reparations for descendants of enslaved indigenous Americans. Do y'all see what happens here? It's just, dude, this thing says for questions. Here's my thesis. I will take 2 questions in here and we'll see what happens. Okay. Because all this is gobbledygook here. How will reparations address the ongoing legacies of enslavement, forced relocation, and cultural suppression? So, you get these Hebrew Israelite Pan-Africanists who love talking in highfalutin, convoluted terms. When they have an opportunity to speak, it turns into their 6th grade English dissertation, and they think they're impressing people. This is a question with no reason for existence. You don't know what you're going to do? Then why do you want reparations in any form, education, land, food, books, or money, if you don't know what you're going to do with it? You are the victim of American slavery. If you don't know how reparations addresses your victimization by slavery, then maybe reparations just isn't for you. Maybe reparations is for the rest of us. It's not for you. So that's my first response to that. How will reparations be tied to tribal sovereignty and self-determination? It won't. So you all can go to the page on my community tab and y'all can go read his stuff if you want to there. But that's what I mean. We get together and instead of everybody getting straight to the point, we're focused like a laser beam. Next thing you know, somebody wants to jump up here and say, can I be seen? My name is Brother Muhammad Ahmed Farik Fazood Ahmad Aziz Escalade Cadillac Brome. And I'm interested in discussing about the subject of reparations and sovereignty and entitlement and self-determination of the original Aboriginal Indigenous American slave people. How will the funds be aggregated in a cohesive and concise manner as we look at our... Man, if you don't shut up. This is not your time to go attention chasing, ego stroking. How much should each FBA receive when first payments are issued? You see what I mean? We should receive the max. How much should we receive? The maximum. Folks, do you realize that when I talk about reparations, I don't really throw a number out there. I'm just like, yeah, you got to pay that. Holocaust victims did not put up a number. Holocaust victims did not put up a number. They told you owe. And they started cutting checks, and they haven't told them to stop cutting checks yet. So that's the lesson I'm trying to teach you all about negotiation. By the way, these other folks that you all are talking about, they didn't give a number. They said you owe. Start cutting the check. And then they said, okay, can we stop now? Nope, I'll let you know when you can quit. Next check. Come over here to us, mama. How much you think it should be? This is how niggas get caught up with Cadillac Records. Sell all their publishing and masters for a Cadillac. How much can we get right now? No. No, the folks you're talking to don't have a number. You shouldn't have one either. The number is all of it. I'm from Bermuda. Where do we peace in the system? You don't. You peace for Bermuda. We're talking about in North America. So your slot is over there. You got to make your claim for what happened to you, if anything happened, over there. That's what you have to do. Mr. Black, can you explain the political steps it must take for reparations to become law? The same political steps it takes for illegal aliens, the same political steps that it takes. See, we don't get up into plebiscite babble and folks telling us we need to hold a plebiscite and hold a commission. No, we don't. The illegal aliens didn't have to hold a commission. That was their political step. I want the same political step you gave these illegals who shouldn't even be standing on the soil. I want the same political step you gave them. I want the same one you've given the Ukrainians. I want the same one you've given the Afghans. I want the same one you gave the Japanese. I want the same ones you gave the Jews. I want that one. The political step they did, that the one they had to go through. I want that one. I want that one. That's the political step I want. Second question, as it stands now, the Dems need our vote in the not too distant future. They won't need it and the Republicans don't need it. What is the outlook for reparations once neither group needs our vote? We're always going to be a swing vote in that regard. So your projection there is in error, and I've already explained these other so-called minority groups. What happens is they're only rabid to vote Democrat in their own interest. These folks, they fled because they're self-interested, not group-interested. So when they first show up here, they vote like Democrats because that's what they need to get through the door. As soon as they get themselves settled and get some stability up under them, they start voting like Republicans. So that's what happens. Okay, some folks are late here tonight. It goes back as far as the establishment of the continental United States government. So you can start at 1776 and go forward. How do you debunk the comment reparations starts at the local level? Here's the issue with reparations at the local level. If your local government was not involved, how do you make a claim? So if your local government was not involved, what's your claim? The local level would be the state level. So if your local government wasn't actually involved, now in some cases they were, but for a lot of folks, they're not. Okay, for the late kids who were sitting up here playing around, watching videos about Trump and whatnot tonight, for the late kids, we already answered. You can't make a claim against a government that didn't exist. Your claim is against the United States government. In case you just fell asleep in civics class, and a lot of you apparently did, that didn't start until the official would be 1776. Technically, it wasn't 1776. It was actually right before it, but we can make it official as 1776. Nobody disputes the establishment of the United States government by 1776. They have already established that legally with their currency, with their documentation and everything else. They've already established it as 1776. Okay, fine. 1776 it is. There was no United States government before then. You can't make a claim against the Plymouth colonies. You can't make a claim against the colonies. The colonial governments are gone. So for those of you who those dates just whizzed by you, okay, you can't make that claim. So if we're going to make a claim against the United States government, then you need to be aware of United States government history. There was no U.S. government before 1776. Your claim starts then. This is not a claim about racism or slavery. This is not a claim about racism or slavery. This is a claim about the descendants of American slavery. Not global slavery or general slavery. So now understand the legal framework and the basis upon which you're making it. You can't make a claim against the Jamestown colonies. So somebody anybody saying anything before 1776, just try to catch them up to American history. Clearly they weren't paying attention in class. So I'm not you're being snarky. I'm saying a fact. If somebody has to remind you, we keep saying the United States government, 1555, 1496. Okay. All right. Will we be able to get annual reparations for the continued use of our land and resources? Like I say, that depends on whether it is given as an annual payment. I would slightly favor that one, quite frankly, or a lump sum payment. But remember, at some point there, once you finalize whatever it's going to be, It's either going to strengthen your negotiating position or weaken it. So I'm a firm proponent of, okay, just I'll tell you when. I'll tell you when. But this ain't get reparations for the continued use of our land and resources. Well, that's what reparations is for. So if that is the claim you're going to make, here's the issue. The issue with that, I think what they're trying to say is that, okay, if this is our land, will we get continued reparations for the white government being on that? The problem is you have to establish a specific claim. So if you can't show ownership of the land, then what are you making a claim on? You can't just make a general claim, I was born here, I have ownership. No, you have presence, not ownership. So just be aware that if that's the argument you're trying to make, that's why it wouldn't hold. Which banks or S&Ls would be available for deposits and ultimately loans? Wherever you want to, I suggest to be FDIC insured. FBA funding for infrastructure development, what? Please don't respond with let's not put the cart before the horse line. Well, yeah, nigga, because you in the cart on top of the horse. If you don't know where you're going to put your money, now you're intellectually masturbating again. He's already sitting up here counting his empires and counting his enterprises and counting his institutions. And we're saying, by the way, do you have a question about how you going to get the reparations? Well, as I build my financial empire and institutions here, the rest of y'all need to get in line for group economics as we have cooperative economics. And that is what we need to be doing here. Is what we need to. Okay. Not Papa Doc, Papa Dunce. So, dude. You don't have a cart or a horse. This is just a naked nigga walking down the streets. You don't even have a plan how you're going to get the reparations. And he's already talking about the financial institutions that need to be in place for it there. Don't we need to handle step number 1 first? No, I've lived my life 3 steps ahead. Is that why you're a perpetual failure? I have not failed. I have discovered all the avenues that do not work. So, yeah. Yeah. Some dudes are already fantasizing. Where's our pathway for reestablishing the Freedmen's Bank? And those are the kind of guys who stand around in their tighty-whitey underwear in front of their girlfriends in the middle of the living room floor, declaring themselves to be a boss. It's crazy. Do you think they'll pay reparations by 2030? They need to pay it now. When do they need to pay it? Now. When will they pay it? They need to pay it now. When will they pay it? I'm not going to accept anything now. The answer for everything. Jason, what do you want? Cut the check. When do you want it? Now. When do you think they'll do it? Now. 2030? Now. That's the only answer? Now. Is it more important to get the money first, then other things like reforming the justice system and banking system, or is it more to do vice versa? Or should those things happen simultaneously? I hope this question isn't confusing. No, it's not confusing, but it's convoluted. How are you going to change the banking system if you have no money? Just think that over for a moment. You're going to change the banking system and you have nothing to bank? This is a logic question. Reforming the justice system. First of all, it's a court system. It's not a justice system. You want justice, call a priest. Reforming the court system, that doesn't require reparations, though reparations damn sure help. But dealing with your court system is a different matter. You don't have to, because what matters in that regard is being organized as a people. We got black judges and district attorneys and everything else. Have we insisted on a black agenda from them, or have we just accepted, well, a black face in a high place? We got plenty done when George Floyd got killed. I know. I was a part of it. So even if you did try to deal with those other things, without the finances, you won't be able to hold it. There's the other problem. You can't hold the education, the political, or anything else without the financial. Because, folks, let's be clear. If you think white supremacist society is just going to roll over, and is just going to roll whatever we do. That's not the way that works. That's not the way that works. So be aware, when we start moving, they're going to push back. They are not going to just sit there and take it. You start getting institutions together, you start aggregating in one place, they're going to start trying to figure out how to undermine you. Just like they do everybody else, although they'll have a particular bone of contention for us. So be aware. They're not going to just roll over. Where's the best place to go to trace our lineage? Well, hopefully the best place for you to go would be your family to begin with. There are a number of different institutions that do that. You know, everybody talks about the Mormon Church. You have, the real thing is what you want to look for. Well, there's several things you could look for. If you want to, you can have a genealogy study done if your family tree is particularly difficult because somebody was just laying up with a bunch of dudes and there's ambiguity. I ain't dissing anybody, but if that's what the basis of that, if there's ambiguity, if it needs to be, you can always have a genealogy study done. But these are questions that most people haven't even looked into themselves. But you have a mother, hopefully you know who your mother is. You have a father. Those are things that you can look into. So yes, it'll take research, but people do genealogy studies all the time. So you have ancestry.com. If you haven't started there, that's another avenue that you have. So there's a bunch of folks who know a bunch of things about us. I think what really happens is most people who ask that question haven't actually looked into it. So there's the thing. But yeah, you definitely want to go ahead and talk to your family members first. And then if they're not being cooperative, you can go around them. There's genealogy records. There's ancestry records. If you need to, you can also pay for that kind of thing. But that would definitely be the place to start. That'd definitely be the place to start. What if the government offers partial payments of Bitcoin non-starter? So I don't even know if I need to go in the rest of this here. That's a non-starter. I don't even want to go any further than that. If they offer Bitcoin, did they take Bitcoin from us? Is Bitcoin what they took? To all the folks who are, well, Jason, what's wrong with that? Was Bitcoin what they took from us? Or did they take something else? Okay, if they didn't take Bitcoin, don't hand me no Bitcoin. Negroes sitting up here thinking like Nigerian money scammers. And how about some crypto? Oh, I'm sorry, take a look at his name. Crypto not. Okay, if you want them, here's what you do. You go take your check and go trade it in for some Bitcoin. So that's what you can do. If that's what you want to do, you go trade your cash money in for Bitcoin. You have the freedom to do that. Land, tax exempt status, etc. Or should one argue for cold hard cash only? Folks, I'm the guy who made the phrase cut the check. You know where I'm going to fall on this. That's the one thing they're fighting the most. That's not negotiable. Cut that check. I'll buy Bitcoin, land, and tax exempt status. Yes, because the folks in this country who make the most money, they're basically tax exempt. So cut the check. I'll buy those other things. Cut the check, I'll make myself tax exempt. I'll take care of that myself. What is the exact amount of money owed to foundational Black Americans? All of it. When will the other forms of reparations kick in? If you can't get one, don't worry about the others. You start one, and once you do that, it rolls downhill from there. Will the government be able to come after any FBA's reparations money for things like hospital bills, college debt, etc.? That's the kind of thing you make clear from the beginning that it's tax exempt. It is exempt from any collections or anything else like that. It has a homestead exemption. So it's tax exempt, homestead exempt. So it's like, okay, that money is off limits. That's what you're owed. So how much do they owe us? All of it. What paperwork should FBA have ready and on hand to certify lineage when reparations are passed? This is a good question. I'm sure there's going to be other folks who repeat this one, but this is a good question. The question here is, what is it that should certify us? Now, really, that I give you all the same. In this case here, we would have the three pillars, of course. The three pillars of our identity here. Number one is your lineage, that you can track yourself back to being one of the Aboriginal or enslaved people in North America. Don't ask about the race. There was only one race that was eligible for that, so that settles that one. Next, of course, we need to make sure we ain't Rachel Dolezal in it. Got questions about that. And that, so phenotype, and that comes into the third one, which is identity. If you've been living like a non-black person, if you have lived your life as a non-foundational, if you've lived your life as a non-descendant of the slaves, you are not eligible for reparations because you have exempted yourself. So if you're some Afro-Latino and you've been calling yourself mixed or Hispanic black or Hispanic anything or Latino that, okay, you got to ride in that car. You got to ride in that car. And everything, your records, returns, job applications, social media, if you have been identifying as something other than us, then even if you technically do qualify, you've exempted yourself. So if the federal government or state governments want to have an out, okay, there's an out we'll give them. Hey, if you can find where a person, you all can disqualify that person if they have exempted themselves. So if they've identified as something else, well then you can go ahead and disqualify them. You know, like folks trying to get unemployment insurance. Okay, he says he's got a bad back, but he's carrying around 50-pound bags of cement. Okay, well, you've exempted yourself, dude. You don't get to sit up here and say, I'm Latina for the last 30, 40, 50 years. And everywhere you go, you sitting up here singing Celia Cruz. And then reparations come down and all of a sudden, yay, us black people, us descendants of slaves. If you have ever identified as something other than us, that's where you stay. So that is a disqualifier, hard and fast. Absolutely not. When you jump over there, stay over there. I'm FBA, but I recently found out I'm Cherokee Indian too. Okay, let's go ahead and have this discussion. When you talk about specifically the Cherokee Indians, my family is on the Dawes Roll list as Cherokee on my father's side. My mother's side is FBA. Will I get reparations from both sides of my parents? Please, TBA, answer my question. You only need one parent to be able to establish legitimacy for reparations. So if either one of your parents is a descendant, all these supposed spooky religiosity people talking about, your lineage, according to the rules of my aunt, your lineage is passed down through your mama. Your brain was passed down through the straws. If either one of your parents qualifies, then you qualify. If you are a descendant through either one of your parents, that is your claim. Just like with Jewish people, just like with Japanese people, just like with Native Americans. That is your claim right there. Your folk being Cherokee, I don't know about that. Were they enslaved? Because remember, there was a bunch of these so-called 5 civilized tribes who took part in the slave trade themselves. So the question is, do you have a descendant who's one of us? You said your mother is. Okay, then your claim would go through her, not through your dad. Unless you can substantiate that he was a slave, then it goes through your mom, not your dad. Should FBAs that marry outside the culture get reparations too? That's up to them, but their claim isn't dependent on whatever decisions they're currently making now. You're worried about the future and whatnot. Look, if there's folks who want to make certain decisions, that's going to be up to them. If you're worried about what they going to do, that's the other thing right there. You're worried about what other folk are going to do. It's like, wait a minute. Solidifying our claim is the most important thing. After that, if folks want to sit up here and do things, if they want to make decisions, if they want to sit up here and go give it all to Kim Kardashian, it's theirs to give it to her with. If you fought all this time to get it and the first thing you want to do is go drop it off to Kim Kardashian, well, it's his to do it with. I think it's stupid, but it's his to do it with. Will a class action suit against the government help with FBA obtaining our reparations? Technically speaking, it would, although a class action against the United States government would be extremely difficult to do because the government has made itself exempt from lawsuits. So that would be extremely difficult, but technically speaking, yes. It certainly would make a whole lot easier. It sure would. It sure would. If we get reparations, will biracials be eligible to receive it too? Already answered that. Or will they only be entitled to have? That is not the way you do that. Now, let me explain why that's not the way you do it. The reason why those of you who you don't want to try to disqualify people by basis of being quote unquote biracial or mixed, because you're then giving the government, if you're going to sit up here and go on a percentage basis, a lot of you who think you're pure-blooded, you're simply not. You're going to arm the government to sit up here and cut down or eliminate whatever you would be eligible for. So while you think you're disqualifying somebody else, understand that rule is going to apply to you. And what they'll do is say, you know what? Let's do a DNA test on you. Hey, you look like you're 80% Negro, but we actually determined you're 50%. You're just really melanated. So you should only get half of what we're going to give. All of a sudden, you'd be jumping up and down and say, hey, you can't do that. So don't sit up here and make unstrategic moves that sit up here and arm these people against you. You start giving them wiggle room that doesn't actually apply to the integrity of our claim. Just understand they will find a way to maneuver it and massage it and make it work against you. They'll find a way to do that. So if you start saying, oh, well, them folks over there is biracial, they say, oh, really? So we can disqualify you with that? Oh, good. Please remember, folks, for folks talking about blood quantum, please remember that was the rule that they used. Yes, that was the legal basis that they used. Now it comes back to bite you. But if that's the claim that they used, okay, you're going to get ready to stand on that one. But if you allow them to, trust me, they're going to find, if you make it a percentage basis based on, quote, DNA, if you do that one, you just told them how to cut you down. I assure you. You just told them, and not just cut you down, in many cases, cut you out. Okay, you got to understand, it's things like this right here. How can black Americans expect to receive reparations without a political pack or movement that Republicans have when they want something like okay, one run-on sentence. So the kids with the run-on sentences, it's just on third grade. That kid back there's with the buck teeth staring blankly into the stars. Dude, did the Japanese need a political pack? Did the Afghans need one? The migrants need, the illegal aliens need one? Okay, why is it we got to have one and they don't? Did the Native Americans need one? Tell me the political pact that the Native Americans had. I want that one. The political pact the Japanese had. I want that one. We can use that one, sir. So how can I expect it? I expect it the same way they did. So name for me the political pack that they had, because I certainly know the political movement, and we got that going right now. But as far as a political pack, folks sit up here and watch Fox News and CNN and MSNBC, and then they think they're political scholars. And it's like, dude, you don't even know how this works. Them other folk didn't require that. Yeah, but we need more. And after we get the pack, then we can have the plebiscite. Okay. Somebody go grab your dude. Come grab your dude. Will entire families be taken into account or by each individual? Individually. Individually. You will not say that we will give $2 million per bloodline. That isn't what you did in Nazi Germany. It's not what you did for the Japanese. You will not sit up here and say you're going to break us, group us all together. And so if you got a family with 100 members in it today, they get 2 million, and a family with 10 folk get 2 million too. No. We were victimized as individuals. We'll be compensated as individuals. We were victimized as individuals. We were broken up as individuals, sold off separately, individually. Therefore, we will be compensated individually. That's the rule you use to wrong us. That will be the rule you use to right it. How do we handle people who say reparations are unnecessary handouts? You ignore them. You don't even talk to them. You ignore them. These other folks didn't, the Native Americans, the Japanese, the Afghans, everybody else, Jews, nobody sat up here and listened to anybody tell them that you want a handout. So no, there is no conversation with somebody who says that. They're just ignored out of hand. Boy, I really need to catch up. You do. Complete tax exemption should be part of the package. Since the petro is declining, okay, we got another petrodollar scholar who clearly didn't listen to that program. Maybe we should ask for gold. Do you all see what I mean? So when these folks start talking about petrodollars, crypto, you know the gold and crypto talk is right around the corner. So if you want to know why it is we have issues, you got folks who have their feet firmly on the ground, and then here come the internet, crypto, NFT token people. The NFT token people who didn't make any money because they don't have any. Here come the NFT people. I can get in Bitcoin. We should ask for gold. Okay, let me go ahead and deal with this now for those of you who are listening. Well, Jason, you've explained what the problem with Bitcoin is. It's not cash. It's outrageously volatile. Okay, what's the problem with gold? People, for the umpteenth time, if you had $1,000 of gold in 1985 and $1,000 of Microsoft stock in 1985, which one would be worth more today? Stock market has its ups and downs, but let's go ahead and ask the grown-ups for once. This is simple math. If you bought $1,000 of gold in 1985 versus $1,000 of Microsoft, what would you have which one would be worth more? That it ain't even close. It isn't even close. So when you got somebody trying to sit up here and GED professor their way through the gold standard and silver standard, this is a person who does not know the history of the valuation of gold or silver or anything else for that matter. And even gold wasn't what had the value, as gold was used as to undergird the currency itself. So I know the special ed scholars, they jump up and gold, silver, Bitcoin, land, and they haven't been able to make. If gold and silver was worth so much, you'd already have it, and you'd already be making it pop off. So you're saying those things because you don't actually have any of them. And it's like, okay, don't suggest those things if you've had no experience dealing with them, and you don't. So no, cash only. By the way, if you think those things are smart, why is it that all your billionaires are not trading in all their billions for billions in gold or silver? They may buy a little gold and a little silver for their portfolios. Ain't nobody making half their portfolio gold anywhere. Stop lying to yourself. How can we start a unity for reparations at grassroots level? We're doing it right now. Should there be a recognized group in every state in anticipation of a class action that is solid? I mean, if you can organize one, sure. No reason you can't. But don't talk about it, be about it. If you want to go the class action route, don't talk about it, be about it. Why don't you ask for reparations for Jim Crow laws instead of reparations for slavery, and why no one has assembled a team of lawyers together to sue the U.S.? Okay, all the slow bus kids here. Your claim Jim Crow was an outgrowth of the system of slavery. So you're leaving the establishment of what caused it on the table, the causal of it on the table. Furthermore, if you go by Jim Crow standards alone, remember, Jim Crow wasn't everywhere. So if Jim Crow were legal statutes, if now you're limiting your claim. You actually had a much broader one, sir or ma'am, when you linked it where you were supposed to chattel slavery. By you limiting it down to Jim Crow, there's a bunch of places that actually didn't have Jim Crow statutes and can prove they didn't have Jim Crow statutes. They may have had slavery or participated in slavery or cooperated with slavery, but they didn't cooperate with Jim Crow. Now you've let them off the hook. So no, don't limit your claim trying to be too slick by half. You're trying to be too clever by half. No, chattel slavery is the claim. That's all you need. That covers everything. And then from there, we connect the Great Betrayal and Jim Crow and segregation. From there, we get to link those things. But the foundation is our lineage. All those other things were against that too. We're not going to limit it to the 20th century. Our claim goes all the way back, and then we put everything on top of that from there. So that's not even good law. No, you start with slavery, you go from there. You don't start with a limited claim and see how much you can maximize it. You start with a very broad claim and you pile everything else on top of that. That's how you make that work. Do we have to agree on an official group name that specifically categorizes us, that is recognized by and on the U.S. Census in order to receive reparations? Well, certainly that helps. I'm from the category of I don't care what you call it so long as you recognize what it is and cut the check. However, technically speaking, it certainly helps from a cohesion standpoint if you understand who we are. The names are simply to tell you that we are the people who are descendants of American slaves. People who are descendants of American slaves. There you go. Simple as that. Doesn't have to be complicated. From there, because you can have whatever name you want to it, but from there, people are going to ask, okay, why are we liable for something? So remember, the name is really a way of getting people as a group on code, but it's really going to be superfluous as far as your claim. The claim is we're descendants of American slaves. No matter what you call us, we're descendants of American slaves. By telling you that, we're also telling you what we are not. Understand that. We're also telling you what we aren't. We're not immigrants. We are not folks who are aggrieved of racism. That is not the claim we're making. So after that right there, I just want everybody here to understand, I've done this for years. When folks go, we shouldn't call ourselves black. We need to call ourselves the Moors. We need to call ourselves accidental Africans. We need to call ourselves American African descent. Okay, dude, whatever you want to call us, great, fine. Now, what are we, I'm buying whatever you're selling. Now, what are we going to do about this white supremacist system? Then y'all know this over years. You've heard me, whenever somebody's tried that, they start clamming up real quick. You've heard me over the course of years now and going on 2 decades. They start clamming up real quick when I do that one. Okay, once we get past the semantics, what you want to do. So I'm not going to sit on semantics for any real length of time. Call us whatever you want to. Just understand we're descendants of the slaves, and that's what you owe me for. You can call it whatever you'd like. We're the ones who qualify. The $5 Indians and immigrants, when they don't. There it is. There it is. How are you planning to deal with whites trying to deny black people reparations in America by complaining speciously about Africans sold us to? How do you deal with whites trying to deny us reparations? They're doing that right now. So it doesn't matter what you're saying here, is they're already doing it. Jason, well, how you plan to deal with it? The way we're doing it right now. We play past that. We ain't paying that no attention. Disregard. We're black and we say so. Disregard. Yeah, you ain't got that. Doesn't fly here. We're not making a claim against Africans. Whoever those tribes were, whatever those governments were, you can't prove they still exist. You can't do none of that. So we don't have a claim in Africa against Africans. We got a claim right here against this government. This one. We are not letting you take our eye off the ball and discuss unrelated things. This is not, people, listen, this is not a general slavery argument. We're not arguing about slavery in general. We are arguing about the crimes of the United States government. Don't let them take you off in some unrelated direction and start arguing for claims you can't even make or you can't substantiate. That's why they want to talk about Africans sold you too, because they know you can't really substantiate that. No, we are talking about the United States government, and that's all we're going to talk about. If they want to talk about Africans, tell them, look here, there's plenty of Twitter spaces and Twitter rooms. You can go talk to Africans all you want to. We talking about something different. We talking about something different. That's where we are. When we get our reparations, how should we use it? Spend it, distribute it, and or maximize it so that our generational wealth continues. Okay, I'll have some patience here since I'm trying to do a comprehensive program. We'll have some patience. Folks, just understand, one of the things you have to keep in mind is that you're going to have to invest some time now. You're going to have to invest some time now if you are serious about this. And my whole thing is that this is supposed to be on top of everything else you're doing. It's supposed to be on top of that. It's not supposed to be some incidental thing. It's supposed to be on top of that. So everyone has a responsibility. Everyone has a responsibility. Understand that. All of us have a responsibility to make sure we don't screw it off, but remember, that's your personal responsibility. If you want some finance tips, at the very least, I would recommend that you at least, and this is baseline, that you at least put it in a high yield savings account. Okay, forget the stock market. At least put it in a high yield savings account. At least do that. At least somewhere where it's drawing some modicum of interest. In the stock market, picking stocks is very tricky. An index fund or mutual fund, but most likely an index fund, that'd be okay too. But if you don't know anything else, do that. I'm not going to suggest life insurance because that's really a financial vehicle. And if you don't, you're really going to be taking out a loan. So if you don't do that, that's not going to help you. If you don't do that, that's not going to help you. But other than that, no. So folks, I want you, like I say, take some time now. Look into that now. This is basic financial literacy. Don't just sit around looking at other folk and being all silly. Opening a high yield savings account, you can do that with $1,000 to see what it does. Opening for an index fund, you can buy into that. Buying into an ETF of something that actually makes some sense. Petroleums are cool and okay. There are technology funds you can buy into. There's a number of funds you can buy into. An index fund, of course, is the one that Vanguard does. So when Bogle created that changed everything. So that's one that you could use, but at least put it in a basic place where that would happen. At least. Even if everybody needs to learn how to get their finances together, you need to learn how to get your credit together, not own a bunch of people, not having a bunch of outstanding bills, making sure that you're financially solvent. You don't go off and pay for a bunch of garbage you don't need. Live within your means. I mean, that's literally what it is, living within your means. You can have a certified financial planner. That's one option. Just understand they get a percentage no matter what occurs. So keep that in mind. So does Vanguard too, by the way, but technically speaking, they've done a whole lot better. Those are things you can do in that regard. But if your personal finances are in a shambles, that's the first thing you need to fix, is not having your personal finances in the shambles anymore. You got stuff you owe. It's okay, get your personal finances together so you're ready. And then your kids are ready. Yeah, I mean, there's a number of different things. Make sure you're with a reputable firm or something like that. But there's a number of different vehicles you could use. You got Black Unicorn here. Y'all listening to this nonsense? Wow. Y'all not tired of being scammed? SMH, being scammed? How? What is the scam? You got to understand, when you're desperate, you just start saying silly things. When you're desperate and you wish you had some goods against us, but you don't really have anything, you just start talking silly. That's a problem. Hey, I know this old buck-toothed bedwenching hoe here. Okay, no wonder you angry and upset. Things ain't never worked out for you. I remember her. Things ain't never worked out for you. It ain't worked out for you before. It's not working out for you now. So your whole life is in the wrong place. I don't know why you mad. Well, I do know why you're mad over here. It's just, nothing came right for you. That nigga didn't come back. You never got them edges together. The rent is always due. So she didn't never get it right. So now I recognize her. Nothing ever went right. Nothing. Even though a lot of bootlooks and sellouts and their families will benefit from reparations, why do you think that there is so much pushback from them? Because their emotional allegiance is to the dominant society. If negotiations for reparations fall apart, are we willing to accept sales, property, and income tax exemptions? No. Income tax exemptions on what? They've already got you economically repressed. Black folk already don't make enough money to be significant for income taxes. They've already got you suppressed. Property, if you don't have the money to develop the property, you probably won't be able to hold it anyway. So without the money, it doesn't work. Sales, property, income taxes is no. Well, we can come to tax exemption later. Let's make sure the money come in first, and then all this other stuff. People, one more time, did the Jews fight for tax exempt status? Did the Japanese fight for tax exempt status? All these other folks who got reparations, by the way, were they sitting there fighting to be tax exempt? Bitcoin? Even the folks that you gave land to, remember, they gave the Native Americans land, people. They gave them land. How did that turn out? They spent the better part of the next century trying to get money. So the slow bus kids talking about building your Afrocentric farm in the middle of Maryland somewhere. By the way, they gave the Native Americans land. How did that work out? They gave them land and then they're like, oh, damn, this land, bring us some money. Okay, we supposed to be smarter than that. Yeah, I saw what you did with the Native Americans. No, no land, no wasteland. Cut the check. I'll take care of the land after that. Cut the check. Just cut the check. If I need land, I'll take care of it. Cut the check. This is when you have Democrats who just show up in places and just say things, and it's just, we talking about stuff here and folks. What about Rudy Giuliani? What about Trump? We talking about reparations. Just understand the ADHD kids, they need to be more worried about that instead of trying to question us about reparations. Dude, you can't even pay attention long enough. As a white man, if you think I'm going to work hard to pay taxes to fund this reparations BS when you or I have never had a single thing to do with slavery, you have another guest coming. Fortunately, it's not up for a vote by you. But the fact you're sitting here talking lets us, the fact you didn't dismiss this and you stopped to say something, you're worried. You should be. How to protect ourselves from fraud. Okay, if you don't know how to protect yourselves from fraud right now, maybe you need to just, okay, for everybody who's not sure what to do with their reparations, a high yield savings account or an index fund, that's where you need to be. You go there. You put it there until you figure this out. At the very least, there will be more than there was when you left. So start there. Start there. Start there. How to protect ourselves from fraud, because people will try to take it back from us. Will reparations be in perpetuity? Could be. What strain is that? Okay. It's the bi strain. I'm only going to read this one right here to show you this is your brain on drugs. Blunts and beats. With all the reports about the US dollar collapsing in just a couple of months, and all of these foreign countries joining BRICS, where exactly does the argument for reparations stand in the middle of all this? Because what if reparations were promised between now and then, and the money received wasn't worth anything? My second question, even though the DNC is failing with the debates and obtaining the black vote, when it's getting as bad as it's been for the DNC, should we be concerned with whether or not they may try to rig the election in their favor? Okay, folks, old Beats and Blunts here, he's telling all of us that the dollar is going to collapse in the next 120 days. How many of you, here's my thing right here, how many of you right now want to bet me your income for the remainder of your lives? I say the dollar will be here and will be fine in 4 months. All of you who think the dollar is collapsing or will collapse by October, I would like for you to make just a friendly little agreement with me. If the dollar collapses, I'll take care of you and your family for the rest of your days. However, if the dollar does not collapse, you will hand over all your lifetime earnings to me, which you shouldn't be worried about, because after all, aren't you going to be making your new income with BRICS? And by the way, BRICS is not a currency. For the folks who don't really understand that, so many of these folks talking about petrodollars and things, they don't understand the difference between currencies and agreements, but okay. But by the way, if you truly believe the dollar is going to collapse in 4 months, by the way, do you all think this fella is going to show his face in 4 months? I'm going to leave his comment right where it is. I want all of you to keep up with it here. We're going to see how well this one ages. How many of you think Mr. Blunt-Head Beats is going to show his face in 4 months, is going to speak up in 4 months? How many of you think he will? to come back and brag to us about how correct he was that the dollar was going to collapse in 120 days. How many of you think he's going to be here in 4 months to defend any of this? How many of you think you're going to be able to find him? I'm going to leave his comment right where it is, but let me know if you think you're going to be able to even find him in 4 months. When the dollar is, by Christmas time, when everybody's still sitting here and the dollar's still sitting here, anybody think he's going to be jumping up there and say, I told you so? Or do you think he's going to say, okay, not this month, but next month? It's going to collapse next month. In November? Yeah. November come. Hey, is it going to collapse yet? It's November 30th. It's going to collapse next month for sure, December. All that Christmas spending and all them gifts and things people can't afford, it's coming down next month. Okay. How many of you truly, sincerely believe that that's what's going to occur? That in 4 months, the dollar's going to be worthless. If you believe that, then let's you and me go ahead and make this agreement. I will take everybody who shows up. Oh, don't worry. My lawyer will make sure it's legally binding. My lawyer will make certain it's binding. What's the criteria to be deemed eligible for ADOS reparations, lineage, birth, DNA, genealogy results, all the above? But starting with your lineage. So for those of you who don't know, the claim is lineage. Okay, some folks just ain't paying attention. The claim is lineage. The claim is lineage, and you need birth location and genealogy results, obviously, to help establish your lineage. So being kind of redundant there. Because what about blacks who own slaves? Really, nigga? Really? What about blacks who own slaves? What about blacks who own slaves? Like I say, that just sounds real weird, doesn't it? That just sounds real weird. It really, really does. So I'm picking up some real serious immigrant vibes there saying that. That's got some real immigrant vibes to it. You all can go to her page and take a look. That's got some real immigrant vibes to it. Real heavy buck dancing vibes to it. So, whole lot of that. Folks, remember one thing when people try this little con job. Can you find one black plantation in America? For all the folks, tethers, buck dancers, ass kissers, white supremacists, suspected white supremacists, who try to trot out this black people owned slaves line. By the way, can you show me the black plantation in America? Well, surely if it was that ubiquitous, certainly we should have a bunch of places that are historical sites where these black slave owners were stacking up the dough because they had all these black slaves, right? Certainly that should be the case, right? Right? Isn't Cornell married to a dude? What's your point? See, this is what happens when you have open mic. It's just folks sit up here and do their drugs, and then they sit up here and say silly things. It's just, okay, dude, what does that have to do with anything? What does that have to do with anything? Does state and municipal reparations efforts harm the federal effort, which covers all black Americans everywhere? No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. But just keep in mind, like I say, it's just make sure that you actually have a claim in that regard, because when you get serious about that, that pushes back. Now, just understand, you have certain states that have tried to be preemptive about this. So certain places have tried to be preemptive, Florida, things like that. That is something to keep in mind. That's something to keep in mind here. So don't just assume that you can press a claim everywhere. You want to be strategic about it. I would rather folks gather in one place where you can get things done than just be scattered everywhere, knowing that you got legislative headwinds against you. You want to be strategic. You want to be strategic. Okay, let's take a look here. Folks, I mean, just come on. Are Caucasians descendants of freedmen, and will that make them qualify for reparations? No. No. We've already covered that they will not be identifying as nor genetically qualify as, so no. If states have committees for reparations to implement reparations in the future, can you only collect reparations from the state you were born in? Most important, should we reject that and our only support and advocate for reparations at the federal level? Already answered that. Ideally, you'll have it at the federal, state, private sector level once you get started with that, because once you start setting a precedent, it goes from there. However, with that being the case, we should press for it wherever we can, period. It shouldn't stop at the federal level. However, when you set a precedent at the federal level, that rolls downhill for everybody at that point. But it doesn't really matter which way you start. If you get it at the state level, that sets a precedent for the states. If you do it at the federal level, that sets a precedent for the states. So either which way. It's not about where you were born. It's about who you are. You're a descendant, so it doesn't matter about where you were born. However, if there's a state that was paying reparations and one that isn't, just understand that could be problematic, just hopping from state to state. Oh, I was born in Mississippi, but I'm going to make a reparations claim in a state that you weren't born in or don't live in. Now you're going to get in legal trouble there. If you try that, I mean, that's going to be very, very difficult. That's going to be if you're not a resident of the state, what claim are you making? What if you're black and your family moved here from Jamaica in early 1900s? Then you're not doing anything. You were still affected by segregation, Jim Crow, and race laws. This is not about segregation, Jim Crow, or race laws, as I explained to the person previously. Our claim isn't Jim. For those of you who are wondering, does this limit you? Now you see what I mean. No, our claim is not based on segregation, racism, miscegenation, or Jim Crow. Our claim is based on slavery. Specifically, slavery in North America administered by the United States of America's government. That's our claim. If you immigrated here, you knew what you were getting into. You knew what America was, and you made a conscious decision. We are telling people we had no choice in the matter. We were pressed into this system. You liked the system so much, you said, you know what? Whatever going on in America is better than what we got going on in Jamaica. Then that's what we call assumed risk. Understand that. That is what you will be told. If you try that one, they're going to tell you that's assumed risk. You knew that before you came over. So, there. By the way, yeah, I mean, if you're from, well, he's talking about if they came here this isn't a liability claim for racism. We're not making a racism liability claim. That's the difference. It's not a racism liability claim. It's not a racism liability claim. What if you are black? You're okay. What's the cutoff time for reparations? So we already covered that, starting with the establishment of the United States government, 1776. 1776. Well, they ask it anyway. What percentage of foundational black must you be to receive reparations? We've already covered that. Mine is two-part for those that say no to reparations. A, slavery means work without pay, paraphrasing. Okay, do you actually have a question in there? Okay, they're just talking. Should black-owned financial institutions be in charge of disbursements to FBA? No. And should it be a requirement to bank with one of these black-owned institutions as well as FBA? No. Pay a once-a-year black tax deposited in these banks that goes towards needs in our community? No, no. All three questions, no. No. The black so-called banks are going to have to determine that they're responsible enough to do that. So no, they're going to need to demonstrate that first. No. And by the way, we'll be tax free except we're going to put a tax on ourselves. No, they need to qualify for that. So no. How do we teach the younger generation on reparations? We're doing it right now. What we're doing right here, right now, this is what teaches them. With the distribution of our reparations, how can we guarantee 100%, that only FBAs will receive reparations and not other black groups that are from other countries are born here? We already covered that. Everybody's going to have to show their paperwork. Everybody's going to have to establish that. Everybody's going to have to establish that. So no, you don't just get to walk up and say, well, I was a victim. No, everybody's going to have to prove themselves and show themselves. Just like when you have to register to vote. Okay, let's be clear, folks. Think about this like getting a passport, okay? Think about this like getting a passport. When you get a passport, do you just get to sit up here and say, hey, give me a passport? It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. If you want a passport, you got to show documents. You got to send them off to Washington. They have to process, well, Washington or Utah, whichever one they use, because there's more than one place they actually do that stuff from. But long story short, when you want to get a passport, there are millions of those out there. So, folks, there's already precedent for this. When you have to get a passport, you have to establish that. You don't just get a passport. You got to prove. Where's your documentation? Okay, we're going to need some weeks to validate this. Do you have any other corroborating documents? You're welcome to give us that too. Okay, we already do that for a passport. So for those of you who are having trouble wrapping your heads around it, we already do this kind of qualification process for a passport. So now just think of it as a lineage. This is your lineage validation. You have your passport for international validation. This is your lineage validation. There you go. There you go. If the harms to our people were in the moral, mental, physicals, one moment. got a full bottle tonight. I didn't think I was gonna need it, but I got a full bottle tonight. Let me just, so I can't even take a teaspoon of this. I got to take a drag. I got to drag the Pepto tonight. I can't even take a teaspoon or a tablespoon of that. I got to drag this. It's gonna be a long night. All right, where the hell was I? If the harms to our people were in the moral, mental, physical landscape, y'all thought plebiscite babble was the craziest stuff you was gonna hear. What do you see as the remedy across those three domains to our... This ain't even a reparations question. Just, nigga, get some therapy. Just, wow. I asked about reparations in the mental, physical, moral landscape. Okay, this is speculative. That's not really what we're talking about. We're talking about reparations questions, not political questions with a reparations slight reference. Okay, same thing here. I'm in Asheville, North Carolina. We have a reparations task force that is ending, but they acted like I was speaking Chinese when I brought up lineage based, and they went with black instead. How can I get them moving in the right direction? The same way we've been doing it over here. Everywhere you all and whatnot. You have to be vocal about those things. They're going to pretend they didn't hear what you said. Even if they do go off and do something else like, okay, that wasn't what our claim was. So if you giving folks stuff for being black, that isn't what my claim was. So we'll be back to discuss lineage. We'll be back to discuss lineage. They're playing dumb with you, but we're not going to play that game. Question 1, is state-by-state reparations an acceptable alternative to federal level reparations? No. It can be in addition to, but it cannot be a replacement for. Number 2, how do we prevent them from cherry-picking the leaders who finalize the terms of our reparations agreement? What we're doing right now. This is led from the grassroots, and it must be led from the bottom to the top. We are not electing any leaders. We're not electing any representatives, and we are not going to let the matter go until it has been addressed on our terms. So, no, they're not going to get to pick anybody, and we're not going to allow it because the conversation is going to be led by us, and every time we hear something we don't like, we're going to be very, very vocal in that regard that we didn't like it. And we will simply not go along with it. Okay, what would be the best mechanism for cash disbursement? Direct deposit? Would federal and state be assessed together? Okay, folks keep asking about that, so we've asked and answered. Okay, when mentioned that there is a process in filing an application for reparations, can you, Jason, explain the agencies and possible documentations we would have to apply? B1. Like I say, just like when you have your passport going to the State Department, certainly that's one option, because once you have it, it's really about which state agency would administer it. So, I mean, having it administered through the State Department, just like they do for your passports, that's a way to streamline it. Or Social Security. Social Security's another one that could be used for that. Or maybe better yet, Department of Commerce. But I would want to go through agencies that, really their job is to keep track of people and backgrounds and things like that. And they pay out money or they validate documents. So the State Department or Social Security, either one of those I think could do fine in that regard. Either one of those I'd be fine with, but just so long as it's clear what the documentation needs to be. Okay, as a non-FBA person, I really don't understand how any black person could be against reparations. Neither do I. So my question is, why are my fellow non-FBA people so scared to get reparations from the other colonial powers? Are they really just that scared? Yes. They are terrified that they're going to wake up one day and have to identify as something other than what they are, and they are so invested in it, they ain't trying to do nothing else. They are so sure that that's going to be the case. That's what they're looking for. Okay, I'm not really sure about this one here. My parents were born in Trinidad. I was born in New York City in 1996. My question is, would I still qualify for reparations, being that I checked off Black and African American on most data forms my whole life? No. No. Your parents were born in Trinidad. No. You have to, if you have a reparations claim, you would go with them. You have to go with him. If that was what they did, they're from Trinidad, that's where your claim is. Would I qualify because it wasn't part of American national slavery? Like I say, this is not a case of racism. My heritage was still affected by slavery because we carry the last name of a slave master. Remember, if you're immigrants, though, they chose that. They chose that. Would you be content with the idea of having reparations in the form of us not being taxed on our paychecks and getting untaxed back pay from all of our employers we worked for in the past? That would be definitely an issue. That'd definitely be an issue. I don't see how you would enforce that. I think that's going to be a bit convoluted. And the other thing is, I don't want us to limit this to folks we worked for or employers. I don't want you to limit that, because then you're going to have to start substantiating things, and you don't want to make a claim based on that anyway. If you're going to be tax exempt, you'd be tax exempt going forward. So it doesn't really matter about previous employers. What can we do about the FBAs who are financially illiterate? They need to get up to speed, quick, fast, and in a hurry. A lot of us, including myself, don't know how to manage money well. Should we have a law in place to assist/educate those who want to build generational wealth and not spend it? Yes, here's the problem. The problem is you have something that you're owed. We have two options. We can give it to you and ostensibly hope for the best, or we can withhold it from you until who decides that you're ready. This is called adulthood, people. If you give the government the power to withhold your reparations, remember that becomes a rule for everybody. So if the rule becomes, well, we shouldn't give it to you unless you prove that you're financially literate enough and financially competent enough, well, that would become a qualifier on all of us. And who decides that we are competent enough? Who does that? They'll use that as a weapon against all of us. So there are upsides to these things. There's downsides to these things, folks. So if you let them tell you that, wait a minute, only if you're competent enough, well, you might as well just put in one of those literacy things for voting. And they will then tell all of us that none of us are competent enough. Or, well, you can get it after you take these classes. You're going to give them the ability to start putting regulations in front of it. They didn't put regulations in front of anybody else. So, no, you don't want this to be a situation where they got two choices: hand you what you're owed or withhold it until we feel like you're ready for it. You don't want that to occur. They'll use that as their excuse to give everyone nothing. Once again, for those of you who are not financially literate, once again, you can start with little things like balancing, they used to say balancing your checkbook, but I'm going to give it to you very, very simply. You should have savings at the end of the month. You should be able to save at least 10% of your income every month. If you cannot save consistently 10% of your income every month, you're messing up financially. So there's a real simple rule of thumb. Can you save 10% of your income? If you cannot, you are financially irresponsible. You need to make changes, get a second job, stop spending so much, cut out anything and everything that is extra. You need to, that's how you prove financial responsibility. But if you can't save any money by the end of the month, that's financially irresponsible. You don't spend every dime you get. You pay your bills, you pay for a few things in particular, and then the rest of it gets saved away. That's proper financial stewardship. So if you want to know if you're on the right track, tell me if you can save money at the end of the month. If you can't, start there. Stop going out. Stop hanging out with that dude. No extras. Vacation what? Do you need to get a new skill set so you can get your income up? But save 10%, at least 10% every month, preferably 25%, but at least 10% every month. How do we know the government won't, and I've already explained about high interest yield savings accounts and index funds and whatnot. I already explained about that. How do we know the government won't pull some trick like Black Wall Street? They'll definitely try. Folks, they're going to try. This is not going to go off without a hitch, and we are not going to get them to sit up here and say, okay, we're going to go ahead and cut the checks and everything's going to be fine. No, it's not. They're not going to just hand it over. It's going to be a fight every step of the way. It'll be a fight even after we get it. So everyone be prepared right now. This is what it's going to be. Where they give us the money, land, and resources, then attack us. They're going to do that. I promise they will do that. How can we protect ourselves from getting tricked again? What we're doing right now. Folks, they're going to try to claw it back. They're going to they're definitely going to try to claw it back, period. Point blank, in the discussion. If you know what they're going to do, how can you get caught unaware? How can you get surprised if you already know, by the way, they're going to go, this is what they're going to do. This is what they always do. That's the whole point of us being on code, because it's one thing to go after individuals. If we fought for reparations as a group, then we need to defend our reparations as a group. Is there any actual reparations proposal that exists and is ready to present to the American government? Yeah, we've already done that. They already know what it is. HR 40 ain't it. Cash payments, they already know what it is. You heard what Bernie Sanders said. You heard what Elizabeth Warren said. They already know what it is. Ice Cube and everybody else is talking to them. They already know what it is. So yes, it's already been presented. It's not ready to present. It's already been presented. They said no. They got another thought coming. Should we have an opt-out option for reparations for the coons that say they don't want it? I mean, certainly if they say they don't want it, I think it would be delicious to have to make them exempt from it. If they said, I don't want reparations and I want to be out of that, then they should be disqualified from it. If they have decided that they have made statements that clearly indicate that they do not hold the United States government liable and that they're not interested, I have no problem whatsoever. As a matter of fact, that is justice. Okay, you claim that you hold them without any sort of guilt, then you need to stand by that. You hold them guiltless, you need to stand by that. So just like the folks who don't want to identify as black, you don't want to identify as descendants of the slaves, you don't want to identify as them being liable to you, okay, you should have to stand by it. How feasible that is, I'm not 100% certain, but I would love to see it. I am all for it and would love to see it. I'm 100,000% behind that. No, that's not what they're saying. They're not saying voluntarily opting out. Like, how do we opt them out? Because you know they're not going to voluntarily opt out. You know that's the way coons always operate. Coons run with whichever side is winning. So if we start winning, then the coons, yeah, right there with the rest of you. No, Charles Payne. No, Charles Payne, Thomas Sowell. No, not you. Not you. If cash reparations are granted, do you believe there'll be a violent backlash from white supremacists and extremists? Of course. But they're doing that now. So what's the difference? Now we'll just be better prepared and better resourced to deal with it, but they're already doing that now. So I don't know why folks trying to get scared. They're already doing it. That there will be? So there's another violent backlash right now? Okay. How much cash should each person who qualifies get for reparations? All of it. Would this be a one-time payment or yearly? We already covered that. When do we stop asking for what's ours and go take it? Okay, get up and go take it. Should biracials get half the payment? We already covered that. Non-Americans, lineage-based, should support, not on basis, eligibility, your reparations case, because once you win, the British and Europeans will also have to pay for their reparations too. Well, ostensibly speaking, because we're the most powerful black people on the planet. So as we go, so goes the rest of the black world. So if we set that precedent in America, and that puts super heavy pressure on everybody else. We get the W here in North America, and that sets super heavy pressure on everybody else. So yes, you should be behind ours because that's actually the shortest pathway to you getting yours. Do you think descendants of people that were white passing, living as white, and birth out their blackness, should their descendants receive via lineage basis? Like I said, I think we covered that. The only difference would be, like I said, if there's a difference in identification, because if your kids are like, look, I'm black, and grandma's over here talking about she white, or she's identified as white or Latina or whatever, grandma got to hold that. But you will not be held to that because grandma's a dingbat. If grandma has disqualified herself, she gonna be disqualified. If you follow her, so will you. If you didn't follow her, then you can't be held to that. Do people ever think about what Tulsa, Oklahoma would be like today? Okay. If they try to take over reparations, what's going to be the strategy? The strategy is you're prepared. Okay, folks are asking about whether folks got one parent. We answered that already. Okay, what time we're taking our reparations? 9 a.m. All right. You can do it at 8 a.m. if you like. Should we take back all the land stolen, the music, the inventions, the entertainment rights, and everything else we built along with the cash payments, and also built black banks to put the cash payments in? I mean, that's the whole reason for us protecting our cultural legacy now. You can't protect, but how you gonna take it back if you don't even claim it? So there's the whole reason why we are carving out very clearly and very starkly who we are and what we got. So you have to put up firm boundaries. You can't get shy and bashful about defending your cultural legacy. Otherwise, there is no music to protect. So all of that, we don't have to wait for that. You take that now. You take back your music now. You take the inventions. Remember, inventions only have a certain amount of time frame. You can make money off of them anyway, but you take that now. You take your cultural legacy now. You do all of that now. You don't have to wait for that. You do all that now. You make your claims now. You get them other people up off of your culture now. That's going to be hard for some folks because they are hell-bent for leather on interracial sexual access, so that's going to be a tough nut for them to crack. But for the folks who are not, by the way, if we all got on code and got reparations, what percentage can we all put towards black empowerment? You can put as much as you want. Folks. Like I say, speculative things like that, it's yours. Do whatever you want to do. If you want to get together with 5 or 10 other people and y'all do that, go ahead and do that. It's yours to do that with. But as far as all of us getting together as a group, these other folk didn't do that either, by the way. Nobody told Jewish people to get all their money together in Jewish banks. Nobody told any of them to do that, and they didn't do that. Neither did the Asians, neither did the Native Americans. So it's not up to us to go ahead and do something like that instead. But by the way, if you have enough there, you got enough to get together with a few other people and start a bank of your own if you'd like to, by the way. Just thought you should know. Should we have a county or state freedmen bureau set up to approve/validate who are descendants of American slaves? I mean, you can do that, but if you're getting it from the federal level, you probably best to have it done in Washington, but that way you got one clearinghouse for it. Because you set it up at the county and state level. Remember, Ron DeSantis is there in Florida talking about ain't going to be no reparations. So please remember the reality of these things when you're speculating about that. What if we address the idea of reparations as restitution to make them folks more open to the idea? We all know restitution still must be paid to the surviving family of the payee. So if reparations makes their orifices pucker, we'll speak their language. No, we don't. Reparations is fine. Reparations is the word. the fact that they are uncomfortable at first, that's the whole reason for us repeating it unapologetically. They can try to mock it and try to laugh. We don't ever back off of it. That word is now in the national lexicon, folks. It's not on its way. It's here. So now you got it. You work that one. And we continue repeating it, and they will get comfortable with it. Didn't say they're going to like it, but they will get comfortable with it. So this tool is already working. There's no reason for us to sit up here and overthink this and start over. This tool is already working. At what point do we present our case for reparations to the international courts, alliances, and governing agencies? Here's the problem with that. The Nuremberg trials were conducted by the Allies. Let's be clear about that. The Nuremberg trials were not conducted by the United Nations. The Jewish people didn't have to go to the United Nations and get them to sign off on that. Going to go round up the Nazis was not something that went through the United Nations and the international courts. Also, please don't be deceived. The Hague is controlled by the West. So your so-called international courts are controlled by the very people you're talking about. So you're going to make limited progress in many regards to being able to make that work. So the very people you're trying to go after, they control those things. So just understand, you're going to have to deal with them one way or another. Why not deal with them right here? Why go internationally to people who have no power to enforce it? Even if they agreed with you, they have no power to enforce it. The folks who really matter are all on code. Okay, nothing for y'all. So start here. Mr. Black, my question, when FBA get their reparations, can we wipe out all debt that includes student loans, medical, and mortgage debt? Yeah, when you get enough money, you can wipe all that out. Since they still have corporations, insurance, hospitals, churches, banks, universities, plantation tours that benefit from intergenerational wealth from legacy of slavery, all profits from global slave political economy should be used to push all FBA descendants. Should be. I mean, wherever you extract the money from doesn't bother me. So extract it from wherever, but the bottom line is where it goes. So all those things there, that's kind of speculative, but I don't care where you extract it from. You can extract it from them. Whatever your basis is, you pay me what you owe me. Out the gate, how can we quickly create an economy? Okay, that's not a reparations question. That's an economic question. Okay, determination of the actual amount of each individual receives reparations. Should we base it on what 40 acres of prime property with water and mineral rights plus the cost of a most notable breed of mule compounded? This is overthinking it, Holly. Holly, this is overthinking it. Once again, nobody said this to Jews in Nazi Germany. Nobody said this to the Asians. Nobody said this to the Native Americans. Special Field Order 15 and the 40 acres and the mule, that's a great historical anecdote. What all that establishes and solidifies is that people recognize they owed us and it was never paid. That's what it is. We way past 40 acres and a mule now. We way past that. Because right now we are up for economic damages and punitive damages, but we way past 40 acres and a mule. Way past it. So compounded, sure. But we're way past 40 acres and a mule. Numbers may vary, but the ultimate number I want folks to understand is the number ain't cheap. This is to be the most historic thing ever done in economics in order to compensate us for the most heinous thing ever done in economics in human history. So they say you can't put a price tag on suffering. Watch us. I believe reparations should be a forever debt, such as $150 trillion. What's your take on that? Here's the issue I would want to remind people of. Just remember, you're experiencing a demographic change and a demographic shift in America. So that is something that should always be kept in mind. What I'm saying is that you don't want us to be paying for our own reparations. So I will just let you all know for the future, that is a factor that you must keep in mind. You must keep in mind the demographics of America and population changes over time. You would hate to end up in a situation. the only problem with an eternal forever debt is that at some point we may be the majority of the population. If that occurs, then we would basically now be subsidizing them and paying for our own reparations. So be aware, there are circumstances under which you want to say, okay, let me turn that spigot off, just in case it starts weighing on us too much. It's like, yeah, let's turn that spigot off. Okay, things are lopsided over here now. Okay, enough. You can turn it off now. Enough. You took out all the money. Yeah. Don't worry about that. You can go ahead and turn it off now. Wait a minute. It's your turn to pay. No. We good. You can turn it off now. Yeah, let me help you with that. Squeak. All right. Yeah. We're good. Here, let me put a padlock on this. Yeah, just in case somebody gets bright ideas. Yeah, we good. Since slavery lasted generations, so should reparations. Would that mean weekly, monthly, yearly checks per person if I receive reparations? Will my children also receive a check, or only if they're over the age of 18? I mean, if reparations is dispersed, then that would go to everyone who is alive now. You can't project out to future generations. So if you have a payout, the recipients would have to be the people standing here now. Which is why they tried to string this stuff along, because they're hoping a bunch of us will die out, and that ain't working out very well. So, no, the recipients would be the people who are alive today. That's not something you pass on to future generations. If your kids are here, they're recipients, but they got to be here to be a recipient. So we covered that before, but I just wanted to go ahead and elaborate on that. Can we address the black peoples who say we shouldn't get reparations? No, we don't really need to. Will my reparations check be taxed? No. This is not a pension. This is not earned income. This is a legal damages. No. Okay, I'm not from the U.S. Okay, did you ask something before here, Desmond? Since white supremacy is vacillating and trying to backpedal, is reparations through land compensation? No. Or half land and half money option? No. We already covered that. Folks, remember two things here. They can do heavy manipulation with land, stocks, gold, Bitcoin. You cannot do the same thing with the currency, because if they play serious games with that hits them. So they wouldn't have the option of playing with that heavy, and this time it only affects black folk and doesn't affect them. You can't do that, because at the end of the day, you only have one currency. Folks, don't overcomplicate this. You don't get land to have land. You get land to get money. You get land to capitalize on it. So at the end of the day, if you get land, but you don't have access to currency, the land is worthless. The land is worthless. All right. How do we keep the black churches and civil rights groups and black state and federal caucuses from being designated distributors of reparations? What we're doing right now. The conversation we're having right now, so that it's communicated to as many people as possible that this is the deal. So no, we don't want the black church, any civil rights groups, we don't want them involved in determining who gets it, and we damn sure don't want them involved in distributing it. So no. They don't have a seat at the table except to back our play. That's their seat at the table. Do we demand distribution come directly from the government? Yes. Like a tax refund? Yes. So, answers itself. No, we don't need any middlemen. Straight from the government, cut the check. You know how to cut Social Security and everything else, cut the check. Okay, another thing about exclusion from taxes, like I say, folks, anything like that would come second, because remember, our income right now is already the lowest, so they would actually be thrilled to just make us exempt from taxes, because like, hell, you ain't really getting charging taxes that big no way because we kept your incomes down. Nah, get that money up. We'll take care of the taxes later. Oh, we're not going to get taxed on that. Never mind. Going tax exempt for 400 years is a good option. Here's the issue there is that 400 years, what are you going to do with that? You're tax exempt, but if you're already not making any money, what good is, most black folk are not really paying taxes to begin with. If you're just going to make the rest of them tax exempt, what good did that do you? Our issue isn't taxes on our income. Our issue is the stranglehold that we have been in economically, which has stifled our income. That's the issue. Should we have a Freedmen's Bank established? I mean, I don't want to complicate things by making yet another federal agency that they can play chicanery with unless we control that. But regardless of who distributes it, as long as they distribute the check, that's all I'm concerned about. You're leery about the banks. Okay. Do whatever you will with that. I mean, I don't know what folks are thinking they're going to do here. So if you want to put your money in a black credit union or whatever, I mean, certainly you can go ahead and do that. But if you haven't done that already, then why are you not happy with it? And if you're not happy with it, so you're saying you want to double down on it? Will there be a Freedmen's Bank in every state? We don't need another Freedmen's Bank. Each of us needs to be the Freedmen's Bank. Cut my damn check. I'll be my own Freedmen's Bank. You just cut the check for the money you owe me. Will you host the after party? I don't do holidays. Okay, Jason, I'm sorry if you discussed this before. Would having a setup like the $5 Indians have, ownership of schools, hospitals, police forces, banks, qualify as being feasible for reparations? No. I apologize if that's the point you already made. No. Cash. No substitutes. Don't offer me any schools. Don't offer me any diplomas. Don't offer me any parks. Don't offer me any cars. Cash. I'll take care of the rest from there. Cash. Don't talk around it. Cash. I don't discuss anything else. Cut the check. Cash. That's the only thing I'm interested in. Dollars. Done. No pacifiers. No tokens. No symbolism. Done. Dollars. Did you bring dollars? We brought a school. Go back. Go take that school, sell it, and get my dollars. Take that school back, go sell it, and get my dollars. You didn't bring the Native American schools. You didn't bring the Native Americans. You brought the Native Americans land, and they came back saying, hey, we need them dollars. I learned from that lesson. You didn't give Jews schools. You didn't give Asian schools. You didn't give Afghan schools. You didn't give Ukrainian schools. You gave dollars. Break the bread. Break the bread. Don't. We're not going to get off into some intellectual excursion into how these other things could be useful. I ain't talking about useful. I'm talking about restitution, what you owe us. You took cash, you owe us cash. As soon as we get talking serious, somebody wants to go divert off into politics. Wouldn't actively supporting Cornel West run for president as an advocate for reparations make sense? We already covered why that wouldn't be. Clearly, this person doesn't even follow his platform. What punitive actions can we take against the anti-reparationists in the future? You got to get to a point to doing that. But the biggest action you can take right now is getting all of us codified together and on point together. Folks, the reason I'm having this conversation with you all here right now tonight is please understand, this is how you get folks on code. Having this discussion right here, which is why I've spent the last 2 hours going through this painstakingly point after point to address all the questions. You want your plebiscite? We having our plebiscite right here, nigga. While you're stealing folks' money. But to anybody who wants a plebiscite, you're having your plebiscite right here, right now. It's being held right here, right now. You want your commission, your get together, your national forum, your national town hall, we holding it right here, right now. You want to have that national education movement? I'm doing it right now. Right here in front of your eyes, right now. I wonder when reparations will be paid, cover that. How much will be distributed, cover that. Wondering if the British government should pay out our reparations to FBA as well because they enslaved and sold black people for profit in America. Our claim is against the United States government. If you're trying to go back before the establishment of the United States government, that's going to be a different matter if you're going to try to make a claim for that. So definitely, if that's something that you think is worth looking into, then by all means, go ahead and do that. Go ahead and do that. I think you're going to find it to be logistically difficult, especially if you're not even a resident or a citizen of that nation. So I think it's going to be a hard road to hoe to get reparations from the British government when you're not a citizen of that nation. Furthermore, if all they were doing was facilitating our transport to North America, it's like, okay, it's because here's the thing, it's not like we were British subjects. So now in the Caribbean, that's a different matter. In the Caribbean, that's a different matter. But we're talking about this government. So pressing anything else, I think, is going to be extremely difficult. What would you recommend for the financially illiterate folks who want to invest? Okay, we covered that, folks. Get a high yield savings account, index fund, hell, 401k, I suppose. That's another option there, but it needs to just be some basic things, at least where your money isn't being liquidated and you can't be going in there tricking it off neither. Can we continue to establishing a new black media corporate building? Okay, new black media corporate building in response to mainstream media's centuries-old attack on foundational black Americans. I mean, sure, we're doing it now. Cut the check is priority number one. I hope so. Okay, so folks are asking, I guess these are substantive questions here about how to invest it. At the very least, number one, make sure you save at least 10% of what you're making. You need to become a person who saves more than they spend. That's what wealth is, stored wealth. And then if you don't know anything else, you don't have a skill set to be able to use, you don't have people to go in on it with, until you get to that point, at the very least, put it in some place where it's just gaining value. At least put it someplace where you're not spending it and it's accruing interest. At least do that. How do we trace our lineage to the 1870 census, first census to include us as free people with first and last names? Once again, remember, folks, if you were in chattel slavery, they were usually categorized as property. So we already covered this before in the program I did here a few weeks ago, that you can go and take a look at county records and you'll probably see that your folks were listed in the property records of the plantations, right next to the spoons and the couch. So for folks who didn't understand that when they said you were property, they meant you were property like a stool, like a chair, or like a glass vase. You were property. We call it chattel slavery. Chattel, like animals, like cows. You were property. So there is a record of it. Usually what will happen is your record will go back to the plantation and then things will kind of just disappear from there. Although in some cases, some families have been more studious about it and have they've recorded their history, because they don't have documentation, but they recorded their history to where they were before the plantations. So that's why you hear about some people who claim they come from Native Americans, but in reality, remember, the indigenous people of America, let me go ahead and deal with this right quick. The indigenous people of America, folks, they got here really only one of two ways. They either were brought here, they came from Africa on their own, or they were brought from Africa on a slave ship. Those are the two categories of indigenous people. You can literally look up the currents from the ocean that would take you from Africa to the Western Hemisphere. That's literally what we had. And Africans were using it way before then. So there's really only two people that we would classify with when you're talking about indigenous and enslaved: those who came from Africa on their own, millennia before the white folk came here, or you were brought here on a slave ship much later. Those are the two categories. Your reparations claim, however, lies in the fact that you were eligible to be enslaved no matter which one it was. Who wasn't eligible to be enslaved were non-black people. Those were the only ones who were not eligible to be slaves. You and me were eligible to be slaves. We were eligible to be taken back into slavery even after slavery was ended. See the movie 12 Years a Slave and the book 12 Years a Slave. So that's what makes us distinct and unique. They made us distinct and unique. we were the only ones eligible to be chattel slaves. We were the only ones eligible to be generational slaves. That's why anybody who tries that indentured servitude con can get out your face. Indentured servants' children were not born as slaves. Indentured servants were just that, servants. You owed a debt. You weren't born into that debt. You entered into a bad 360 record deal. What? We were put into slavery. You signed a bad deal so you could get over here. But you were not a slave, and your children were not slaves either. So y'all need to know your history. That's why I'm doing this tonight. So we cover all of this once and for all. And I'm just going to tell people, go take a look at my reparations program. So no, indentured servants, their children were not slaves. They were not born slaves. If you were of African descent, you were a slave. And if you had any children, they were born slaves. You were chattel slavery, and any of your offspring were automatically chattel slavery. That's the difference. Is it okay to keep voting for the couch if our demands are met? Okay, that's not reparations. If white people find an African slave in their lineage, should they receive reparations? No. How close or how many generations removed from the lineage should folks be to not be able to qualify? Are they identifying as one of us? This is not about, do you have some ancient black relative? If you and your family have not been claiming it, you are not going to be able to turn around under false pretenses and start claiming it now. You have already assumed a socio-ethnic disposition. You've already done it. So if you and your family have been living and operating as white people, you are white people. If you and your family have been adamant for the last century and a half that you are not white people, you are very fair-skinned Negroes, that's a different matter. But that ain't what y'all been doing. So you got some black auntie somewhere. No, that does not make you one of us. No, not at all. So just finding some long lost black relative, and it don't work that way. Doesn't work that way. Do we need to push for the rights of the Jawara people? Cut the check, sir. What if we've moved? Are we entitled to reparations from states that we lived in? If you can get them to pay it, yes. Or where our ancestors lived in, your claim is for yourself, not for them. So you're going to have what they call in law a theater of operation. You're going to have a place to make your claim. So you can't just claim everywhere you've ever been. Oh, I lived in this state and I lived in that state. No. Technically speaking, probably where you were born is going to be the best thing to use as your point of reference, because that's when you became an American citizen. If you have a state that's willing to honor something outside of that, I guess that's up to them. But I don't think you're going to be able to go ahead and just move from one state to another and here you go. I don't think that's going to happen. Once again, like I say, what you're going to need to do here is, you're going to be able to find some documentation substantiated. You'll be able to find that. Once you have that, that's what you need. Okay, should it be one-time payment or a pension? Doesn't matter. Can it be tax-free? It will. Can it be structured for future generations? Can also get payment recipients? Legally, that's not going to work. I have no questions. All right. First, thank you. All right. Is there any way you can format your response to the questions in a bullet point where FBAs can direct non-FBA to the website for a brief description, history lesson on our claim? Watch the video. I'm covering all your questions tonight. My question would be we be better off identifying ourselves as American Indian like we were long before black came along? No. Semantics, people, semantics. Descendants, is lineage of people who were enslaved here in North America. So are you describing somebody who was enslaved in North America, and can you as an individual prove that you are one of them? There you go. Call it whatever you want after that. When our reparations hit the FBA children who aren't born yet in our lineage, would they get a check as well? No, we already covered that. I'm from Chicago, Evanston, Illinois. That's not reparations. They have a reparations bill, not really, but they're inching in that direction, which is why folks are getting upset. So I believe you have to have at least $25K in property. Do you think that that type of local legislation is futile because many don't have $25,000 in assets? I think it matters simply because it sets a precedent. So that's why they're taking them to court, because it's setting a precedent. So I actually, that's its usefulness for things like Evanston. It sets a precedent because each victory fuels the next victory. You keep going down this road and eventually you end up with cash payments. But certainly you can see what's happening in the absence of it. So just giving folk money for houses and things like that, that's basically, you're calling a housing voucher reparations. And that's the thing right there. It's, reparations is not a housing voucher. What would be the criterion used to determine who will receive reparations, how much? We already covered that. Will land in the South that was stolen due to terrorism be returned as well? It should be, but remember, you're going to have to press that issue. Remember, the United States federal government, that was where we were able to push through our biggest gains. You had the terrorism in Wilmington, North Carolina, and Rosewood and the rest of those places. Remember, all that happens, Black Wall Street, Tulsa, Oklahoma, all that happens afterward. So we've actually had a far better record with the federal government than we've ever had with state, much less city government. Please keep that in mind. So the federal government goes down, and it really makes it easier to get a bunch of the rest of these folks to get knocked down too. That does not mean that we don't have action at the state level or the city level necessarily. But if you're asking about that, as far as stolen land and things like that, just be aware, yes, we are certainly owed that, but that's going to be a different issue to deal with because the federal government can't really just tell the states, okay, you got to do X, Y, Z. As far as the land is concerned, that'd be a different issue to push. I think focusing on specific areas certainly helps. So in California, Bruce's Beach. In North Carolina, Wilmington. I think that one in particular is one to look at. In Georgia, Savannah, Georgia. I think that's another one in particular to look at. So there are certain places I think that are of particular interest that would fit that bill for what you're talking about. Because if you're going to talk about things stolen due to terrorism, you're going to have to actually prove terrorism. And those are places where we can prove that. Okay, how do we skillfully develop a framework to avoid the possibility of inadvertently putting reparations money into securing white supremacy? We're doing it right now. Don't put your money into white supremacy. Become financially literate and capable so that you're spending your money wisely on your own. At the very least, be able to put it in vehicles where it accrues interest. Maybe your kids will be smarter financially than you were. Don't go spend it. Maybe they'll have a chance of doing something with it even if you don't. How can we start to push legislation that will bring back the Freedmen Bureau's bank? We don't necessarily need the Freedmen Bureau's bank back. We need a reparations agenda, which we currently have. At that point, you can call the bank whatever you want to, so long as it's cutting the check. My question is about the black farmers who have been denied adequate bank loans for years. Once reparations are disbursed, what will be the steps to force economic reparations to the farmers' lost earnings and land by the hands of at the hands of the federal government? That's already an issue that's already being pushed. So that's a different matter, because there's a difference between being discriminated against for an enterprise versus lineage. So you're asking about something that's separate from reparations. And that issue is already on the front burner already now. This is why when Obama was president, folks wanted to sit up here and play the game, and they played the game right until the man left office, and then they found out they really played themselves. They weren't playing the game. So we're not playing games anymore. The black farmers, unfortunately, They got quiet when Obama got in office, and when it was very clear he wasn't doing what he's supposed to be doing, they listened to a bunch of folks tell them, okay, well, you can't embarrass him now. Don't call him out publicly. They played the game. Now they waited until the man's been out of office for 8 years. Now they want to say something. The time to put the pressure on him was when he was up for re-election. You had leverage then that you're going to speak out against him. You had leverage. We're supposed to speak up when we got leverage. You're supposed to speak up when you still have the power and the ability to sink their ship. You can't wait until their ship is in a safe harbor and then talk about, hey, if you don't act right, we're going to sink it. They're already safe. You let them sit up here and con you into thinking, okay, you be quiet now. We'll take care of this when we get over there. No, you take care of this right here or none of us are getting back to shore. You take care of this right here, right now, or none of us are getting back to shore. Would it be useful to enumerate the billions of dollars heaped upon the other demographics versus the self-evident deprioritizing of FBAs? Thanks. No. We got to stay focused on us and our issue. We got to stay focused on that. That, of course, is a moral substantiation of why we're doing what we're doing, but we got to keep focused on us and our issue. If we start bringing other people into the conversation about what's happening to us, if we start bringing in how you calculated what other people should get or how it stood in the way of ours, just remember, you're bringing them into our conversation. Once you bring them into the conversation, now they feel like they got leverage. No, none of the above. This is our conversation. This is us. This is all us. All us. Okay, who's a greater threat to our reparations, Tethers or Coons? Both. They're both equally a threat. Anybody who's against it, but especially people who, quote, look like us and speaking against it, certainly that doesn't help. That certainly does not help our situation. Okay. Can you give a clear answer on what an American... I think you mean American descendant of chattel slavery is. We've never really used that particular phrasing of it, but I mean, sure. Also, why lineage-based legislation is the most intelligent way to complete the process. All right, let's start backwards. Why is lineage the best way to start the process? Because you're in the United States of America and you cannot make a claim here based on race. So there's the problem. You cannot make a claim based on race, but furthermore, we don't even want to make a claim based on race. Legally, they say we are not allowed to make a claim based on race because, well, you can't give preferential treatment based on race. But they've given it to other people. We say you gave it to the Japanese. Oh, that's based on their lineage as the result of a specific incident or action. To which we said, okay, we are victims of a specific incident or action. What they thought was going to occur, what they thought was going to happen was when we made that switch, they thought it was going to set off this big fight where we all start arguing amongst each other and say, wait now, we got to include everybody who black now. It's about racism. So that's what they thought was going to happen when we said, okay, fine, it'll be based on lineage. They thought that was going to occur. They thought it was going to set off this big internal conflict and this big internal fight. And that didn't happen. We switched over and got on code and said, okay, lineage. Then we started insisting that it has to be lineage because we started recognizing a disturbing pattern among the people who were speaking up most to argue against reparations. Folks whose families are not descendants of slavery. So that just further confirmed to us that it can't be a racial argument because too many of the people who are not from our lineage are actively fighting against it. So it can't be race-based because of American law, but furthermore, we don't want it to be race-based because we're undermining ourselves. All right, what is a clear answer? I think you mean what is a definition of what an American descendant of slavery is. I mean, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. You are a descendant of American slaves. A descendant is if you come from the bloodline or the genealogy thereof, so you can trace it back to parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents. If you can travel up that family parental tree and you got one of those people was a slave, congratulations or not, you are a descendant of American slaves. There you go. You're a descendant. Simple as that. When are we going to get the reparations movement going in Louisiana? Louisiana is one of those places that has a hardcore white supremacist government. So there are going to be certain places where we simply are not going to be able to move the needle in an effective way. We will have conversations, but I don't want us all running around looking like Gary Chambers. You take a look at Florida. Florida is going hardcore white supremacist, and Louisiana, as always, is going further than that. Hell, they just broke up the city of Baton Rouge. Please understand that. They just broke up the city of Baton Rouge. This is how concerned they are about this, and this is how far they're willing to go. The state capital of Louisiana, and they just broke it up in order to segregate and isolate A, the black vote, and B, the black economy. They just did that. So please understand, in the headwinds that we're up against in that regard, right now, it can be very discouraging to people. This is certainly a conversation for us to have and to continue having. We are to be on code the entire time, and we are to keep advocating for reparations until it's viable. We don't ever let it go. That's supposed to be like your religion. We don't ever let that go. We are always to be looking towards that, no matter where we are. How do we get the reparations movement going? It's going right now. It's going right now. Have we organized our own reparations council? Yeah, we got it right now. Who will police and enforce the reparations process for FBAs? We already covered that. What is the best way to document and be prepared to prove your FBA? We already covered that. Is 70 trillion what is owed? Could be. If true, to cut the cost, cut the cost. Can we have a Black Wall Street in every state? The rest dish out in cash? Okay. I don't know why you want to reduce that, but folks, I want you to understand something. Can we have a Black Wall Street in every state? You are Black Wall Street. You are the Freedmen's Bank. Take responsibility. Stop looking for somebody else to do that. Stop looking for someone else to set it up. You are the Black Wall Street. You are the Freedmen's Bank. Being responsible with your money is the first thing that you do to prove that you are a part of that. But don't wait for somebody else. Start where you are. Will reparations be eligible to FBAs outside the United States? No. For example, those who went to Canada, particularly Nova Scotia, many of their children present and spread across the country. That's going to be a difficult thing because you are no longer citizens of the United States, and that is going to dilute your claim. Please understand, if you fled the United States and you are now a citizen of Canada, how are you going to exert rights in Canada and a lineage in the United States simultaneously? So you're actually going to be diluting your claim. So to folks who gave up their U.S. citizenship and didn't stay, please understand that legally speaking, you really disinherited yourself. You're going to have a very difficult time trying to substantiate that you're a Canadian citizen whose family left decades and decades ago oh, but they're handing out reparations in the U.S., it starts to look real tetherish. You see what I mean? It starts to look real. It starts to look like that. So you can't be black when convenient and American when convenient. You can't be black when it suits you and American when it suits you. Okay, what about the mixed people here? I mean, we've already covered that. Reparations are a cash payment. Okay. Taxes, land, mental health, free education, and medical should be included. We got a whole bunch of folks out there. I guess y'all work at schools or you work in psychology and you start putting these things together like a thesis paper and you start including all kinds of things and, oh, let's be comprehensive. No, it's really simple. Cut the check. Yeah, we don't even have to worry about the rest of it. Cut the check. If you don't have the dollars, I'm not trying to hear it. Cut the check. Cut the check. Should there be increments of payments every 2 weeks paid as well? I mean, as long as it adds up to what it's supposed to, doesn't matter to me how often it is, so long as it adds up like it's supposed to. Okay, what's the best way to prove? We already covered that. When there's another hearing on reparations, how do we ensure our brightest and best advocates are there? Folks, this is why we're having conversations like tonight, why I'm having broadcasts like tonight. So that we make sure that everybody is talked to about this. You know what the basis of our argument is. It's not based on race. It's not based on racism. It's not based on Jim Crow or segregation. It is based on our lineage. And lineage means you are a descendant in the lineage or the line of an American slave. If you can draw your lineage and genealogy and bloodline back to an American slave, and that's through your parents, folks. Now, I got a great cousin out there somewhere. That might not be you. If you can go up your parental tree, parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents, great-great-great-grandparents, you find a slave in there in your parental tree, you got it. There it is. But we have to be advocates, folks. We can't give it to everybody else. We have to be advocates. We have to be the specialists. We have to be the spokespeople where we are. In Jewish society, they didn't outsource it to other people. Individuals volunteered to be Nazi hunters. That man and his wife, who were the most famous two, they volunteered to do that. Wasn't nobody paying them. They took that on their own shoulders. We have to do the same. This idea that we're going to get somebody else, get a Cornell West or somebody there, and you sit back and somebody else is going to drag you and carry you to it. No, you're supposed to be the advocate for it. You're supposed to be the most knowledgeable person in the room for it. You are. If for nothing else, so that you will serve as a check and balance on whoever else is speaking. So just in case you see it sliding off in the wrong direction, you supposed to jump up and say, hey, no. No, lineage. That's it. But there's racism. We're not making a racism claim. But everybody else chose to be here. We exclusionary. You're damn right. So you doing that is not supposed to be just one or two people and everybody gonna galvanize behind them, because that's that Negro walk behind people things. No, you're supposed to be leading wherever you are. Not just simply admiring the other folks. You see what we're saying here? Okay, we got it on code. All right, we got the points together. Good. Take it on the road. That's it. You are the best and brightest. At least you're supposed to be. Do you all see the pattern that Jason is laying down? You are the Freedmen's Bank. You are the Black Wall Street. You are the Deacons of Defense. You are the best and brightest. You. Stop trying to leave it to somebody else. You. It is not somebody else's responsibility. It's yours. There's a whole bunch of folks talking about what they're going to do with their reparations check, and not even good advocates or spokespersons for their cause. Don't worry, this person here will be the first one in line. Joanne will be the first one in line with her Schlitz malt liquor and her size 22 dress. I always knew he was going to get it. You always got one of them. That's the ultimate mammyism. Okay, if the name of the game is benign neglect, marginalization, and replacement when we vote, how is it feasible that not voting will secure FBA congressional support to pass a comprehensive lineage-based reparations package? Who said we want congressional? We don't have congressional support. So, once again, we've already explained this right here. This is not about getting together a political agenda or congressional support. But by the way, congressional support, when the voting support collapses, they will recognize, oh, that occurred. Now, it can't just happen once. It can't just be 2024. It's going to need to be 2024 and 2028. But it can't happen just once. It can't happen just once. So, no, we're not looking to Congress to lead on this because the Congressional Black Caucus has already stated that they're against us. Ain't that right? Jimbo Jangles Clyburn, Sheila Jackson Lee, all the rest of them. So, no, we're not looking to congressional support now. We didn't have to look to congressional support or anything else with George Floyd. Asians don't have to do that. We're not doing that now. Staying home and not voting is sending them a message. They're counting on us to show up, to show we still have faith in the process. They're counting on us to hold on to their little seats. We just stopped showing up. That sends a message. Take a look at how they're already panicking. I'd like to see you explain what reparations really is. Cash payments. Ain't that simple? It's a lawsuit. I mean, you can file a lawsuit, but you don't have to. What steps we need to take as a group to achieve that, for instance, is the formation of our own nation is necessity. Okay, folks, have you ever seen a nation finance the formation of another nation? Somebody show me when one nation has ever set about to remedy a situation with somebody by forming another nation for the people that they're at odds with. Show me when that's ever happened. They didn't even do that for the Native Americans. The Native Americans don't even have that. So all these folks talking about formation of nation, like I say, it's more intellectual amusement, but it's not a real thing. Should reparations be the sole reason rather we participate in any election at all? Well, I think black empowerment should be the reason for participating in an election. A black agenda should be the reason for participating in an election. I haven't said that you shouldn't vote, that the issue is, if they're not offering reparations. I've said, is there a black agenda of which reparations needs to be in the conversation? I would, especially at the federal level, at the very least, anybody that you would consider voting for needs to at least in principle publicly declare that they are in favor of reparations, at least in principle. Even if you cannot get it as legislation, they should be able to at least say, I am in favor of you receiving reparations. Even if Congress fights it, even if they don't improve it, I personally am in favor of you having that. That's what they do for LGBT. That's what they do for illegal aliens and dreamers. Okay, you have no problem articulating that you are in favor of their socio-political goal. As our elected representative, you should at least be able to say the same damn thing to me. This is my socio-political goal. Do you agree that I should have it? Even if the state makes a law against it, do you agree that that law is wrong and I should have it? Think of it like hiring a lawyer. I don't care if you are guilty as sin. If you hire an attorney, you should ask them, do you think I'm innocent? If your attorney, who you are paying to represent you, if he can't even look you in the face and say, yes, I think you're innocent, even if he doesn't mean it, even if he's lying, if he cannot bring himself to at least go through the motions that he said he's dealing in your best interest, which means you are innocent. There's no part of me that's expecting you're guilty. You're innocent. If he can't do that, leave. That is not your advocate. Your advocate needs to be able to speak in your best interest, whether they believe it, whether they're in favor of it. His job is to promote your best interest. If he cannot say that he at least is in favor of it, even if he can't get it done, go find somebody who can. Don't have somebody who says, yeah, by the way, yeah, you're guilty and I don't think you can win. That's not an advocate. Okay, let me go ahead and deal with this one here. These are more in-depth things. Now, let me be clear about something. Like I say, for some folks there, I'm not going to say you're 100% of people, because in some folks' cases, not really sure about their circumstances. This woman here is saying she doesn't know her lineage. She's 54 years old. Her mother passed 2 years ago. Her father only knew his nickname, nothing else. I never knew the man or his family. I was born out of my mother's affair with a married man. All my 3 siblings have different fathers. Only grandmother I knew passed when I was 20 years old, with no stories of the past left behind. No known grandfather. I was born in Buffalo, New York. My mother spoke of Jacksonville, Florida, once picking pecans, I think. I have no history. Not true. I know without a doubt I'm FBA, and lack of proof can change that. I'll never receive reparations, right? Please be gentle in your answer. I know it's no, it's not pathetic, but folks, like I say, this is where you're going to have to dig through the crates. Please understand, the American government knows where your folk came from. Grandmother doesn't have to pass down any stories. She's got documentation somewhere. Grandmother got documentation somewhere, so you're not going to be able to be lazy about this. You knew who your father was, so had an affair with a married man. So I only knew his name, nothing else. Okay, that means investigation. Just because it's an uncomfortable subject does not mean that you're not going to have to go digging for that. So you have a place to start. Your father's, you know your mother's name, you know your father's name. So you've got at least half the equation. I understand for some people, you know, from the bastard baby generation and whatnot, these will be uncomfortable conversations to have. And I understand that. But it's time. It's time. Kirk Franklin, he found out who his dad was by a friend of the family at a funeral, but only because he started asking questions. And then other folks started asking questions, and somebody came to him. So this is most likely you have not been asking questions, and you've just been dealing with folk in good faith. It's time to go beyond good faith and start asking some impolite questions. Start doing some digging. We got websites. We got county records. Like I say, you can always hire a genealogy expert, but this is the time to be doing that. You cannot, if your family is not dependable, it's time to start making some folks uncomfortable. And once you start uncovering 1 or 2 stones, watch a whole bunch of folks start jumping up with what they know then. Once you get a couple of things figured out on your own, watch and see as other people in the family will start jumping up asking why you digging through that. So don't be deceived. And there's a bunch of folk who were giving their answers and responses beyond that. But yeah, so they already knew that. Get a genealogy expert. You can look up birth death certificates. So you're going to have to do that. So thanks, I will. So like I say, folks, you can't be lazy about this. Your family has dark secrets and stuff. And okay, mama was honing it up. Okay, it's time to pull them skeletons out the closet. Time to pull them skeletons out the closet. First off, thank you for asking this question and requesting input in lieu of the exponential rise and push for interracial marriages. How does this affect who qualifies for reparations? It doesn't. Already answered that. Okay, question 2. Should we start calling out major UN countries for not placing more pressure on America? I mean, you can try it. Examples: China, Russia, Iran, South Africa, India. So this is somebody talking about BRICS. Okay. They are not in favor of us. China is not in favor of us. Russia is not in favor of us. Iran is not in favor of us. India is not in favor of us. Julius Malema in South Africa is in favor of us, but South Africa as a group is not. So, I mean, folks, you're talking about allies you don't have. China is not one of our allies. India is. At what point were they our allies? When have they shown that they were? So it's just no. Why don't these nations sanction racism, white supremacy worldwide like the Americans sanction terrorism? They have. In all these places you named, black folk are equally hated in all these places. Even in South Africa, they're letting the Afrikaners run things. Black folk we're not welcomed in China or Russia or Iran or India. So I'm like, okay, well, how we can't fantasize our way through life. We can't do that. Is there some way that we can just for starters, demand an FBA hate crime bill? We've already done that. That's not reparations. So we've already done that. That's already moving, but that's not reparations. Given our history, how should we be prepared to protect ourselves? We already covered that. How can we prevent some of those vulnerable among us from being disenfranchised? We already covered that. The objections we get to reparations often revolve around the feasibility and practicality of cash payments. What would be the actual economic impact on the U.S. economy paying out reparations to FBAs? The same as it is for the military-industrial complex. You're just taking the money and putting it somewhere else. They had no problem pulling $2 trillion out their ears when the pandemic hit. They have no problem pulling out trillions of dollars when they want to go to war, trillions of dollars when they want to spend money on something, trillions of dollars when they got a special occasion. And they always got a special occasion. Only when we show up, all of a sudden, it's going to cause inflation and this, that, and the other. Okay, but it didn't bother them otherwise. Otherwise, it was the thing to do. As soon as we show up, here comes the damn po-mouth excuses. We're just saying the office of po-mouth excuses is closed. We ain't having it. Where they going to get the money from? That money you gave the Afghans. You're going to turn off that spigot over there. You're going to turn on this spigot over here. New York City is spending billions of dollars on illegal aliens. There's our money right there. There it is. Nobody asked about how it's going to affect the U.S. economy till we show up. We show up and all of a sudden, we pinching now. We got to watch our P's and Q's now. What would be the immediate social ramifications of FBAs receiving reparations be given our current position in America's racial hierarchy? The same as it is right now. Nothing's going to change. Jason, they going to hate us. They already hate us. Hello, that's why we're in this position. They might try to attack us. They attack us all the time. What's your point? So we're already in that position. So this is it. We're rolling from here. What is the strategic answer against the tethers that say we are not the group that actually suffered during slavery? They don't get a vote and their opinion doesn't apply. They're not part of the conversation, which is why we have made this a lineage-based conversation. If you are not of our lineage, your opinion, unless you're backing our play, but your opinion is irrelevant unless you're backing our play. That's it. You don't get a say. You don't get a vote. It doesn't matter what you think. How much should an individual reparation check be? We covered that. Define who is eligible. Already said that. Beware of lowballing the amount and pretendians. We already covered that. Hey, Jason. Hi, Cocoa Sweets. Do you feel tax relief for the American black working class is a good form of reparations? No. Of course, cash payments for all masses as well. Like I say, we're already economically oppressed. In several U.S. cities, almost 50% of black men are unemployed or underemployed. So they've already got us in that tax box. That's not going to help us by making it. It's not like if you didn't have to pay taxes, you'd be free. It's not like if you didn't have to pay taxes, oh boy, if I didn't have to pay taxes, man, everything would be straight. It's not like that's the case. It's not like if you just, that little old earned income tax credit is not going to set you free. So, no. This is not a tax-based argument. And for the people who do pay enough in taxes for it to be important, their income is already high enough that that's not really an issue for them. So for the overwhelming majority of black people, that's not gonna help you. There's a reason why you get an income tax return, because your income is not actually high enough that you owe taxes. And if all we did was allow you to keep that little old $3,000 or $5,000 a year, that is not going to set you free. That is not going to overturn 400 years of systemic oppression. Okay, this person said, you can please go to the Census Online and start tracing your roots. Ask your grandparents for the oldest relative they know. That's all you need. Okay. How do we find upcoming events where politicians speak so we can voice our demands and ask their position? Very good question there. Every political candidate tells you where they're going to be, so that's why they have their websites. They tell you where they're going to be, so wherever you are, they make their campaign stops known. How do you think they just tried to kill Trump today? They knew where he was going to be. It's like, okay, he coming to Pennsylvania. Let me get the strap. So you know where Biden's going to be. You know where the politicians are going to be. It's just, did you go to their website and check and see? Did you ask? If they're campaigning, they let you know where their campaign stops are. Be it one, Marcel Dixon can find them. If Marcel can find them, it's okay. In the chat room, Samuel Logan, what institutions, any of them, but you're going to have to knock that government down first. You're not going to get it's going to be hard to press the private sector until you get that government down. So state government or federal government, you're going to have to knock those down. That private sector is going to be the hardest one to fight because they're all going to claim that they're not liable because they're private. When the government takes liability, private goes after that. Private will fall after that. When will it be deposited in my account? Now. Love Black History. Great. This is not really a question, but an idea. Okay, I'm looking for questions. How can we get reparations without being a nation or even recognized the same way that Asians got it, the same way that Jews got it, the same way that Native Americans got it? Folks, this is really redundant. The same way they got it. Okay, Icy said her eyes are open. Glad to hear that. Do I need to prepare to return to California to receive my reparations? Arkansas will never vote on giving reparations. Don't say that about Arkansas. But about California, I don't know. It depends. If they give a residency requirement or something, you could be on the outside looking in. I'm not sure. First, get the standalone African-American anti-hate crime bill, then ho for reparations. I think you meant go for reparations. Okay. You're sitting here emotionally masturbating it. No, you don't have to do that. You go for both at the same time. The hate crime bill, these are two things running simultaneously. Yes, we can walk and chew bubble gum and toss a Frisbee at the same time. We can walk, chew bubble gum, and toss a Frisbee at the same time. We sure can. Is state by state the best approach? It could be. I'm actually in favor of dogpiling certain states. So when California started moving and everybody jumped on California, you saw how well that worked. So I think I'm in favor of all the above. Jason, which strategy do you support? All the above. City, state, federal, all of us in one state, many of us in multi-states, all the above. Everything. There is nothing. You leave nothing on the table. You grab everything. How many generations removed does it make you unqualified? There is no if you can trace yourself back to the lineage, you qualify. For example, Obama's daughters, if they had kids with a non-FBA, would those children be qualified? But okay, if they had children with a non-FBA, would they be qualified? Well, through Michelle, but assuming, of course, that they even identify as, so through Michelle. Assalamu alaikum, Mr. Black. My comment is, okay, I don't want to comment, I want questions. Okay. I'm not FBA. A whole bunch of folks not FBA. All right. I'm certainly hoping we get the reparations. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. My question would be, what is the total amount of reparations demanded? All of it. And exactly how much cash per household person would everybody get? Every penny they owed. The amount, everything we're owed. How soon? Now. With the Supreme Court's end to race-based support program, shouldn't this make it easier for Black Americans to lobby for legislation solely on lineage? No. Based on civil rights and benefits? No, it will not. Nothing is going to make it easier for us. It's not going to get easier. We got to keep pushing. They're always going to tell you that the very thing that they just set a rule that you just said, okay, y'all supposed to do like this right here. They're gonna always tell you, oh, that doesn't apply to you. They're always gonna do that. That's what they just did in Oklahoma. Didn't even give an explanation. So that's why we're not depending on the Supreme Court. We're not depending on the Supreme Court for this. So folks who talk about courts and international courts and Supreme Courts, by the way, there's a reason we're not going through them for this. Are there any expected lawyers willing to take on the government? Our legal class as a group has been summarily worthless. So there's the biggest obstacle that we face with trying to file a lawsuit or class action or something like that. Our legal class in Black society has been summarily worthless. That's the problem with that. So you can talk about filing lawsuits all you want to. We don't actually have a competent legal class in Black society. Okay, and that question's been asked and answered. What percentage of Black people are American descendants of slavery? Why does that matter? That doesn't matter. And why is it accepted for politicians to keep trying to attach our apparent claim with others? Because most of those politicians either are not one of us or because they're trying to figure out how to weasel out of it. Do you believe non-ADOS Blacks would oppose lineage-based repair, being that this phase would exclude them? They already do, so it's... A lot of them already do, so this is redundant. I'm wondering if we are holding our vote to throw a wrench in the electoral system in order to get reparations. Yes and no. We're withholding our vote because we're making a stand that if we are not all going to be equally comfortable, we'll all be equally uncomfortable. There is only one political party that has claimed that they support Black people and they're the party of Black people. But that party has obviously been dealing in bad faith. What we're doing is offering a correction that we see what you're doing, and you're no longer going to play this game where you talk like you're doing something for us and then you don't actually do anything and tell us that that's the best we can expect. So what we're saying is, okay, you know what? Since you're not going to represent us, there's no reason to support either of you. There's no reason for me to support either of you. Your vote is supposed to have value. When you allow yourself to be reduced to the lowest common denominator of the lesser of two evils, that's when your vote becomes worthless. You're voting now not to get anything. You're just voting. You're not even voting on principle. At least people who vote third party, even when their candidate doesn't win, at least what they got was their principles affirmed. You voting for these votes, well, I mean, which party gonna win? That's not a reason to vote. That's not a reason. How do we make them honor their empty promises? By punishing them when they don't. By not showing up to vote. If you continue to show up to vote and they didn't keep their word, you're now rewarding them for not doing it. You're telling them that there is no deterrent and there is no penalty if they break their word. How can non-FBAs contribute, and what would be the overall effect of non-FBAs economically when FBAs do get their reparations? Non-FBAs can contribute by taking the tether class to task. We shouldn't even really be saying a whole lot. When they throw up their foreign flags and whatnot, you tell them, hey, I'm Jamaican, you pipe down, you off code. That's how you back our play. Because if we were FBAs in South Africa and somebody came from America talking about what the South Africans ain't doing or supporting the Afrikaners against the South Africans, we would be the first ones on deck, front line, taking them down. We'd be Black South Africans wouldn't have to say nothing. We'd be the ones cutting that person off. We'd be the ones taking them down. We'd be the ones putting them in their place. We'd be the ones letting everybody know that's off code. They wouldn't have to say nothing. The problem is when they come over here, all of a sudden folks get quiet. Now they know what we would do if we were over there, but over here, all of a sudden, they're getting quiet. So that's what non-FBAs who support us can do. What we would do if we were in your country, if we were in your bag, that's what we would do. Well, you do the same thing. Simple as that. Okay. I think she meant Jason. I am 59 this year, and I remember my grandmother telling me that she doesn't know about any slavery in our family. That's irrelevant. We are all from America, though. Could that be possible? I still want my damn money. Yes, you're going to have to go through your lineage. You're going to have to go doing the looking. Some of y'all got to understand, some of your grandparents and whatnot, they might not want to tell you some things. Some of your grandparents might not want to tell you some things. They might have reasons for not wanting to do that. Here's the problem. They don't have the option of concealing that. They don't have a right and they don't have the option. So if somebody laid up with somebody that they're not proud of, you got to hold that L. But we're going to have to dig. We're going to have to uncover that. You're going to have to hold that L. You're going to have to hold that L. No, she didn't say they don't know if they're from America. She said that her grandmother told her she doesn't know about slavery in the family. So just because they're from America doesn't necessarily mean that they're descendants of slaves. That's very true. It's most likely that you were, but that doesn't guarantee that you were. Not necessarily. So with that being the case, yeah, you want to check the genealogy. Are there property records of a plantation or an owner or a white person that claims they own you all? You know, things like that. Was it ever registered that way? Are there gaps in there that show that that was the case? Those are the kind of things you want to look for. Those are the kind of things you want to look for, but the records are there, I assure you. Okay. Okay, this isn't even making grammatical sense, so not really sure. I don't know what you're saying. I'm just going to assume you're trolling because I'm having difficulty deciphering it, so I'm just going to assume it. Okay, should we withdraw our support from athletes, entertainers, celebrities who have remained quiet about our push for reparations? Yes. Can we put a stop to non-FBA speaking on our behalf and undermining our cause? Well, like I say, certainly we need to make it very clear who has a right to speak and who doesn't. That's how you do that. As far as the entertainment class and whatnot, absolutely, we shouldn't be supporting anybody who doesn't support that. Everybody got to toe the line. Don't matter where you at. You ain't never going to be so big you ain't got to toe the line. Once you put yourself out there as not toeing the line, remember about Tamir Rice. Everybody who's off code, you're going to get it. And believe me, they do hear about this. They do hear about when we talk about these things, they do hear about it. If power is taken, why are we waiting for a handout? Nobody's looking for a handout. So I'm a social studies teacher. I already teach from an ADOS-centric perspective. Congratulations. What else would you recommend I include in my curriculum to prepare our young folks to continue the fight for reparations? Most importantly, they need to be taught about chattel slavery and the debt that is owed. Most of these states now are trying to erase slavery in particular from history. They need to be taught about American chattel slavery. They need to be taught that America and the states were implementing it and all the successor historical practices, Jim Crow, segregation. And they also need to be taught the difference between chattel slavery and indentured servants, since now we know that they're trying to weaponize that and use that. They always mentioned indentured servants before, but now trying to make some correlation or some equivalence between us and them. No. So you got to make sure you're clear with them on that. If we start the Freedmen's Bureau, I mean, we don't necessarily need to, but okay. What are your thoughts on how we should construct the selection process for leadership council hierarchy? I mean, we covered that right there. The bottom line is, do you qualify for it? You don't have to have a counselor hierarchy for your passport. There's the qualifications for getting a passport. You either meet those qualifications or you don't. No council required, no hierarchy required. No council of elders, no civil rights groups administering it. Either you meet the criterion or you don't. The federal government owes. We get them to say, okay, we do owe it, and this is the criterion on which you prove that we owe you. Case closed. Just like with your passport. If you can show it, you've done it. Once they confirm that what they're showing is legitimate, you've done it. You've done it. Simple as that. Okay, should FBAs doing life sentences be able to bargain their freedom as part of the reparations claim because technically they are still enslaved? This is a good question. Okay, let's deal with this question legally and logically. Now, here's a question that I've never been asked in regard to reparations. So let's deal with this question legally and logically. Are prisoners, even those serving life sentences, American citizens? The Supreme Court has always upheld, yes, you are an American citizen with all of your civil rights. Now, of course, you are being held in confinement because you violated that one loophole to it, but you are still an American citizen with all of the rights inherent. So you still have that. Now, in some cases, they might be restricting for felons and stuff, and you can't vote and things like that, but you still have your rights as an American citizen. You do not lose your citizenship simply because your freedom of domain has been taken. You don't lose your citizenship because of that. So, now that we've walked that exercise through, we have determined that even people who are imprisoned are still American citizens with all of their legal rights. Therefore, it only goes to follow and goes to reason that if we determine that there's a settlement, or if we determine that you're entitled to things based on your lineage, your current place of residence is a non-factor. Now, is it in their best interest to distribute it to them in prison? I don't know. That could be problematic. I don't think that it should be subject to taking, but like I said, you got some folks, if they committed crimes and they have to pay restitution or something, that could get sticky. That could get sticky. But as far as somebody who's in prison bargaining their way out based on reparations, no, you can't bargain your way out. If you shot 3 children, hold this life sentence. If you ran over some little old lady, hold this life sentence. Whatever else we got going on out here, that doesn't supersede that. So no, our reparations fight does not exempt you and give you amnesty from some bull crap you was out here doing. So no. You are still going to be a guest of the state for the remainder of your life. So there's no technicality that exempts you from that. Which generation will get reparations? Now, should it go to biracials? It shouldn't go to people who, it goes to people who can draw their lineage back. It goes to people who can draw their lineage back. Okay, I can find public records of my ancestors owning their own farms as early as the 1790s. However, I don't have any record of a family coming up on slave tables. Is it possible that many of our ancestors that toiled the fields of the South were never subjected to chattel slavery, yet were still subjected to white supremacy in wages for their goods and stolen land? Should we expand the demand for reparations beyond just chattel slavery? Thanks. Now, please remember, yes, you had people who were chattel slaves. You also had people who were freedmen. Well, yes, you certainly did have that, but the onus is not on us to prove that. If they were on a plantation, it's going to be up to them to prove that they weren't slaves. But remember, slave has a specific definition, that you were somebody's property. It is outrageously unlikely that your family was, quote, laboring on some white people's farm for the remainder of their whole damn lives. That's very unlikely. Very unlikely. To the extent that you live in the system of white supremacy, please be aware that's where the claim may get specious in that regard. You're going to have to show where they were damaged. That's where the lineage of slavery comes into play. But is it possible? Well, yeah, I guess it's possible. I just think it's very unlikely. You're probably making an assumption that's actually not accurate. They just worked on some white folks' farm for their whole damn lives? I don't think so. I don't think so. Black Authority, why aren't
Nigga, please.
Black Authority, why aren't you reporting how many black Americans are targeted and tortured by space and military weapons? Thousands of us are targeted and tortured daily. No black media. Black Authority, why aren't you reporting how many black Americans are targeted and tortured by space and military weapons? Thousands of us are targeted and tortured daily. No black media outlets talk about this Holocaust that's taking place in America. Heartburn creeping up. The heartburn creeping up. She must be in the women's prison. Yeah. Do you all think it's easy to be me? You see things like this, we're trying to have a serious discussion. You think it's easy to be me? With some of the stuff that people come up with? What is the difference between giving reparations to the descendants of foundational black Americans versus the descendants of Native Americans who have been receiving all the benefits, discounted free education, healthcare, etc., plus cash payments and access to self-employment and contracts for years? We're not worried about what Native Americans are getting. That's the difference. The difference is we're not worried about them. We're worried about us. If somebody already identifies Native American, oh well, you're not one of us, so we're that's the difference. We're concerned about us. Okay. Mr. Jason Black, my question, how would the application process work? So we've already established that. Say that they have a document from a Bible written on parchment paper with calligraphy and signed by a county clerk, birth of my relative in 1867, A can trace my lineage back this far on both sides. Thank you. Side chick wannabe. Okay, ma'am, this is the most awkward side chick application. This is kind of awkward here, but yeah, definitely. Like I say, look, if you have documents and they can be authenticated, if you have a document that can be authenticated. So if you have a document that can be authenticated, certainly if you got it from the county or something like that, then they should be able to authenticate that very quickly and go from there. How can we determine which black Americans qualify for reparations? I would imagine being black would suddenly become extremely popular. Yeah, so we've already covered that about who qualifies. But more importantly, remember what I said about who's not qualified. All right. Mixed people. We already covered that. Okay. Includes a lot of $5 FBAs. No, we're not going to have that. We already covered we're not going to have it. You're going to have to fight to make sure you hold the line on that, which is why we keep telling them lineage. We're defining the rules now, and we will not budge. So this is why we're having that fight now. I keep saying it, not just about who qualifies, but specifically about who is not qualified. Because it was a motivational lie said by General Sherman, not the government. Okay, if you're that worried about it, that's why you're losing. Okay, generational distance. Given that slavery was abolished over 150 years ago, how valid is the argument that generational gap weakens the case for reparations? It doesn't. It's been accruing interest because you've been denying satisfying something that's already been codified and established, especially when those directly affected are no longer alive. That has never been the standard. You didn't make that the standard for Jews in Nazi Germany. You haven't made that the standard for anybody until we showed up. Now you're going to say you're going to change the rules? We will not allow that. How might focusing on reparations risk increasing racial tensions or division within the society? Excuse me, we weren't asking for reparations in the 1960s or the 1920s or the 1890s or the 1860s. Are you going to tell me that racial tensions have been low? The white supremacists have all been peaceful on their P's and Q's, and now there's never been trouble before now, really? Folks will say anything to get away from that check. They'll say any nonsense. Do children of immigrant Caribbean parents who were born in the U.S. and did not assume the risk to no fault of their own deserve something? No. What if that child doesn't even like their lineage and identity as black, as the U.S. is their place of birth and only had nothing but a black experience? This is not about racism. This is about lineage. If your parents cannot go back, if you do not draw your parents' lineage back to the slave fields of America, you have an argument with somebody else. You can't bootstrap or tether onto ours because you have a different argument somewhere else. So, no. Your parents are from the Caribbean, case closed. This is not an argument about the United States is racist and has racism. That's not the argument. Amount per check, already covered that. Will we pull together to build vital buildings? You can. Why should black Americans receive cash over other tangibles like land or health care? Okay, fall for the okie doke if you want to. Land, who's going to decide what land it is? How are you going to force that issue? Simple answer, you can't. Health care, you already get health care. So now you're actually dumbing it down. You already have Medicare and Medicaid. I'm not fighting to get Medicare and Medicaid. Who are these people who think that health care is tantamount to wealth? I mean, where are these people from that they think health care is equivalent to wealth, currency? What is going on here? Should we use the 1870 census to prove our FBA lineage? I'd like that. Should we consider state and federal tax exemption as a starter option? No. That can come later, but not a starter option. No. As far as cash options, how do we get Congress to appropriate the funds, and who would be the candidate attorneys to facilitate that? We covered that already. SecDef Austin will likely be the first and last black along the, what is this for? Okay, I don't know what you're talking about here. How about getting our religious leaders and law officials that's black on our side or called them? All right, folks are just saying general stuff here. What's a good response for black people who state they will never get us reparations whenever the topic comes up in discussion? These are the same folks who also said we would never get out of chattel slavery. They're also the same people who said that they were going to put us back on the plantations after we were out of chattel slavery. They're also the same people who said we weren't going to survive Jim Crow. They're also the same people that said we weren't going to be able to beat segregation. So you've always got cowards. Every people in every generation has cowards. Those are just cowards talking. As soon as we get something, the same folk who told you what we wasn't going to get and what wasn't going to happen, those are the first folk in line talking about, yep, where my check at? So in addition to people who don't claim their lineage, I think it would be justice to get all the people who say we ain't going to get it or we don't deserve it or they don't need to pay it. Oh, good. If we can prove you said that, you're exempt. The rest of us will get yours. So don't worry, we're exempt. Okay. How are we going to get reparations if we're not organized? We're organizing right now. There are no real reparations committees. Okay. Folks chasing committees have already lost the plot. Folks sitting up here looking for committees, they have already lost the plot. Already. They're not even on their way to losing the plot. If you're talking about committees, I'm like, you're going backwards. You're going backwards. This is spiritual. Yes, it is. I agree with that. Printing money for reparations would cause a massive amount of inflation. This would have a devastating effect on the economy. Wouldn't that present a risk for re-election bid for whichever party that decides to give us reparations? It doesn't matter who goes for it. Political parties are in power, then they're out of power. They're in power, and then they're out of power. So our job is not to attach ourselves to a political party. We're not here to protect a political party and get married to that. We're not here to find a political party and then attach ourselves to that and then hold on to that. That's not it. We have an agenda. Okay, is anyone in the really five branches of government even advocating for reparations? No, that's why we're advocating for it. That's why we're advocating for it. We will never get reparations from this country. The best we can hope for is tax exemption. You got to understand how stupid and silly that statement is. Why would the federal government make us tax exempt? Where is the movement that is approving or in favor of making us tax exempt? Where are they? Where are they? Where is the movement that is looking to make us tax exempt? Show me the politicians who are in favor of it. Does our ignorance of local politics affect our reparations status? Well, I guess it could if you're ignorant locally, but all right. Why is financial literacy such an obsolete topic within the reparations conversation? It isn't. You're just not paying attention clearly. As a young black man aged 21 living in New York, how can I affect the fight for reparations? The same way we do everywhere else, especially in so-called progressive areas, but that's all the more reason. The fact that they have flooded New York City with so many illegals, that bolsters your reparations argument. That bolsters your reparations argument. The fact that New York City is doing that. So those of you who live in those places that are doing wacky things, just understand that actually enhances your argument. Should people like Trump pay reparations because their family didn't own slaves and migrated in the 1920s? Our claim is against the United States government. If you or I move to a different country, we are subject to the laws and the social condition of that country. Case in point, if you move to Colombia, you are going to be subject to their war on drugs or what passes for it. If you move to Manila or the Philippines, you're going to be subject to whatever the social conditions are in those areas. You're going to be subject to the laws. You're going to be subject to the taxes. Well, guess what? Every nation has national debt for the most part. Practically every nation does. When you become a citizen of that nation, that's what your taxes are going to go pay. You're paying taxes on a number of different things to a number of different places to a number of different entities. And yes, some of these places are paying reparations or restitution of things they owe to other folk. When you become a citizen of their nation, whether your family has been there 500 years or 5 years, once you become a citizen, you are now subject to that. Isn't this amazing? Folks never talk like this about anything else except when this comes up. All these people who want to talk about being expatriates and things, they never talk like this when they're talking about being expatriates and going somewhere else. They know what's going to happen whenever they end up where they're at. It's only when we start talking about this that all of a sudden, folks, wait a minute now. I mean, should I have to do that with them? You had no problem when you expatriate from America. If you go live in Mexico, you're going to be subject to whatever their national debts are and whatever they owe. If you move to Canada, same thing there. If you move to Greece, same thing there. If you move to the Middle East, same thing there. When you become a part of a nation state, you are literally declaring allegiance to that state. Okay. And if that state has racked up a bill, remember, citizens have two things. Remember? Every citizen has two things: privileges, should we say rights, and responsibilities. I mean, sitting up here saying that should you pay reparations because your family got here in the 1920s, that would be the same as me saying, why do I have to pay public taxes for public schools when I don't have any children? Folks, I don't have any biological children. I'm paying for all y'all kids all around America off my pockets. Do you know how much lower? Now, I actually pay taxes. Do you know how much lower my taxes would be if you all would honor the fact that I ain't got no kids? All the rest of you with kids, y'all should have to pay that. Why I got to pay for your kids? I'm paying for public schools I ain't even using. I'm like Chris Rock. Do you think I give a damn if your kid spells cat K-A-3? I give no dams. But they taxing me regardless. And they're telling me the only way out that tax is to no longer be an American citizen. That's how I can get out from that obligation. Okay. So I got to pay public school taxes to pay for public school, even though I don't have any children in public school, but I got to pay for it. I have to pay for freeways whether I drive on them or whether I don't. There's all kinds of things. I have to pay for military weapons, weapon systems, all this damn money being wasted through waste, fraud, and abuse to all these military contractors to the tune of trillions of dollars. I got to pay for wars and equipment in places I don't approve of. You kidding me? Now all of a sudden folks start asking silly questions. When it's time to talk to us, all of a sudden they start asking silly questions. You had no problem paying for all this other stuff. We show up. Ooh, do I have to? We just got here. Why do I got to pay that? We just got here. On account of the fact that you have joined that nation, and this is what happens when you join nation states. They came here in the 1920s. Oh, maybe they want to leave. They certainly have gained enough wealth in the last century to do that. Must be nice to have that option. They certainly gained enough wealth in the last century to do it. Should reparations be paid to descendants of black slave holders? There were few registered black slave owners in the South, so this is a suspected white supremacist here trying to deflect. Should reparations be paid to descendants of black slave holders? I think they're trying to say blacks who own slaves. Are they descendants of slavery? And if you're trying to make, I hope you're not trying to make some moral argument, because the bottom line is no black person created the slave laws, and no black person held a white person in slavery. So if you have a beef with these rules, and if you have a beef with their repercussions, take it up with Thomas Jefferson and George Washington and the rest of the white supremacist hierarchy who created this. Your beef is not with any black person. If you got an issue, take it up with the white government that started all this. Because this would not be necessary if Thomas Jefferson, the man who wrote the words that every man, all men, we recognize this truth that all men are created equal, with inalienable rights endowed in them by their creator. Now, he said that, even, by the way, after he said it, he was questioned about it. It's like, we got them Negroes in chains back there. And he's like, yeah, everybody except them. No, that really happened. Those of you who saw that, I don't know if it was Nick Nolte movie about the biography of Thomas Jefferson. Yeah, by the way, yeah, there were folks calling him out about that then. He got called out about that then. They were asking him about that then. Hey, wait a minute. Ain't you got some slaves? Yes. Aren't they men? Man, got some women in there too. Do they have rights? I mean, they got rights. I mean, they're not rights, capital R. They're like rights, lowercase r, Is the king going to be able to tell us that we have rights, lowercase r? Oh, hell no, we're going to shoot him. Really? So if you got an issue with this, take it up with the framers of the Constitution who sat there on their bald-faced asses and said that we hold these truths to be self-evident. Self-evident. That means that it speaks for itself. It doesn't even need to be explained. These truths are self-evident, that all men are created equal with inalienable rights granted them by their creator, not by a government, not by a president, not by a Congress. He said we are separating ourselves because of our God-given rights. No one can take that from us. While he was literally rationalizing a few sentences later, everybody said you niggas, not you. So if you have a problem with the repercussions, you should get a Ouija board and go take it up with Thomas Jefferson for his hypocrisy. He started this. Oh yeah, and one more thing. The framers of the Constitution knew what they were doing, and I'm talking about with slavery. They knew that they were kicking the can down the road. They were so determined to found a nation so quickly that they didn't sit up here and wait. They knew that they were not actually fixing the issue. That's why you had a 3/5 compromise that was literally them kicking the can down the road. And they all understood what they were doing. They knew that they were deferring this issue into the future. And less than a century later, there's a civil war on account of the fact that you couldn't kick the can down the road anymore. But they knew what they were doing. They knew that they were stalling this. They knew that they were stalling for time. They knew they were doing that. And they were questioning whether or not it was worth it to just have it out here and to resolve this now. They chose instead to deal with the king and go to war with Britain, that was more important. Okay, leave them Negroes in chains, and we will deal with this hypocritical thing here that is so contrary to what we've said we are as a nation. We'll deal with that later. Okay, what you were saying is this is a bill that will sit and rack up interest. That's what you said. On account of the fact you knew that this was an unresolved issue. You knew it. There were people at the Constitutional Convention, Ben Franklin, folks who didn't go along with it. They didn't like it. They wanted to have it out then. But being the civil white men they are, they decided, okay, let's go to war with Britain instead. Okay, but folks, for my folks who teach history, you need to teach that to them, that they understood they were kicking that can down the road. 3/5 of a person? Wait a minute. A slave is either a person with rights or they're not. The 3/5 compromise is literally proof that they were kicking the can down the road. That's a contradiction. So the folks who wanted to recognize our rights couldn't overcome the ones who didn't. I guess they thought that was a bright idea, and all you really did was set the ground for the Civil War. That was all you really did. Was it worth it? I suppose to them it was. I suppose. Could have been prevented. Could have been prevented. Those are all your questions about reparations. We're going to take a very brief non-commercial break. When we come back, we'll be discussing this and more. This is The Black Channel.
Hello, my name is Steve Burgess, and I'm the author of this book, Guidelines for the Successful Student, a closer look at parenting your school-aged child. In this book, I've explained the role of the parent and the student in addition to what accommodations, procedures, rewards and consequences and expectations that need to be in place to ensure student success from primary to high school. This book is available on Amazon.com. For more information, please visit my link tree at Easy One-on-One, and to access my latest podcast, A Teaching Moment with Mr. B. Thank you all for listening.
A white supremacist assassin seeks revenge. Corrupt FBI agents with evil intentions. Dangerous black collaborators dedicated to treason. Occam Jeffers must defeat them all and somehow survive. One misstep and he's a dead man. Join Occam Jeffers as he looks the devil in his blue eyes and tells him, Black first. A sequel to the underground hit War of the Heart, Spirit of 1811 Publishing presents God Love Us, on sale at Amazon. Pre-order and save today. Visit spiritOf1811publishing.com and show your love.
Order yours today to experience all the benefits of Ash Kickin' Body Butter. With skin so smooth and soft, you'll thank us for it. Shop Ash Kickin' online. That's ASHKICKIN.com.
Hi, this is Brenda Starr, creator of Poetry with a Purpose and author of the book Pressed But Not Crushed. Pressed But Not Crushed is an anthology of political poems that address current and historical issues in American descendants of slave population and African American population. The book describes slavery and its residuals, Jim Crow segregation, social depredation, and other relevant issues to American descendants of slaves and African Americans, including the current political climate that does not address our issues.
This is the Black Channel. I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, the Black Authority. Very glad to be with you all here this evening. Before I go any further, I want to thank everyone who has contributed to support tonight's program on PayPal, Super Chat, Venmo. Thank you very much for your support. We appreciate that. Miss Stacy Shepard, Cynthia, Nancy King, thank you, ma'am. Cyberdyne, Dimsum HQ, Position Adjust, all my new channel members, Mr. Warren. I had a number of you all in here tonight as well. We appreciate that. Evan, Mark B, Mr. Richburg, Miss Handsome, and everyone else here who's been involved. Also, the crowdfunding for 8 a.m. is still allowing you. So for those of you who've been late about that, who wanted to say, hey, Jason, I wanted my money going to come in a little bit longer here. We put it in demand. So that allows it just to stay open a little while longer. I don't really know how long that lasts because it's usually like a week or two. So definitely make sure that you don't miss out on that. Big shout out here to everyone who helped to make that possible. A lot coming up from that here. So I can't wait for you to see that as well. Let me make a little bit of a aside here. Shout out to Miss Nay too, by the way, in Super Chat. Miss Nay, Black Power Podcast, Seven Samoan, everybody else here. Thank you very much for your support. Let me make a brief aside here for a moment. There's a reason why I did tonight's program the way that I did. There's a reason why I did that because I wanted to show you all what discipline looks like. We live in a day and age where folks are really conditioned to go chase attention and go chase what they think is hot. So you see, it would seem to be that if I was a creature of YouTube, well, of course, naturally, I would discuss the assassination attempt today on former President Donald Trump. But I want you all to understand, I don't fake it this. I live this. This is where I'm at. This is where I am. No matter what would have happened today, the issue is my people and where we at. How easy am I to distract from that? How easy am I to take off of code? How easy am I to take off of my square? As you can see, it ain't happening. You all remember during the pandemic, I was 10 toes down, wouldn't move. War in Ukraine, 10 toes down, wouldn't move. Assassination attempts, 10 toes down. January 6th, 10 toes down, ain't gonna move. Not going to move. This is how you send people a very clear message that this is the only thing you talking about. And that you are a single issue voter. Now, let me explain to you all the benefits of that. The benefits of that is that the only way they gonna move you is if they start dropping them tangibles. So you see, even if they claim they don't want to do reparations, they gonna have to come to the understand. I'm not listening and hearing nothing that's not tangible. Not gonna hear it. Not gonna hear it. There are not 50 issues, there's just one. And I'm not hearing the rest. Not hearing the rest. So no matter what's going on, no matter what's happening, nothing is going to interrupt our previously scheduled program already in progress. We're not changing topics. We're not changing subjects. We'll get to you some other time. Tonight, when I said reparations, we're not moving. We're not moving. And that is the kind of focus that we must have. We have to have that kind of focus. We got to have that. We have to memorize the talking points. It's not enough. That's why I spent the last 3.5 hours here talking. I want to go through that exhaustively. If you listen to this program here, you should have it, man. I literally sat here and answered dozens of questions. Yeah. There's no reason for anybody who's listening to this program, live or recorded. You got the answers now. Now you know exactly how to respond to anything and everything. You just got a crash course in it. All we got to do now is just hold firm and show them, yeah, we're not going to chase trends. We're not going to chase any of that. If I said we're doing reparations tonight, that's all we doing. For real, for real. That's all we're doing. Presidents come and go. Administrations come and go. Black empowerment is forever. Well, let's see if we can get you distracted. Can you talk about something else? There are bigger issues. No, there are not. No, there aren't. This is how they keep getting us. Every time we turn around, we allow somebody to tell us that there's a bigger issue that needs to be taken care of. That's what they always do. That's why we cannot compromise. We cannot allow them to sit up here and tell you that there's a bigger issue. Wait a minute. Can you wait a little longer? Something else just came up. That's why we can't let that be the answer, because they always gonna claim that there's something else that's come up. And then you go take a look at what it was, like, I'll be damned, that could have waited. So no, we're not accepting that for an answer. We ain't playing the game. We're not waiting. You don't get to talk to us behind closed doors and whisper it. Oh, well, don't worry. We'll take care of that later. That's not going to happen. We're not going for it. We don't need anybody to tell us what's going on there. So yes, we're going to create some awkward moments. We gonna create some awkward moments, folks. Hey, y'all sound like one-trick ponies. You're real monotone. You damn right. You're damn right. So, certainly not looking for folks to get knocked off. But let me reiterate to everyone listening here live or recorded. When I started tonight's program, I want you to see how serious I am about this. Jason, they out there trying to kill presidents and everything else. Is we going to discuss that? No, we're not. We over here on this. Jason, it's January 6th and Trump's people are trying to knock the damn doors in. Oh, y'all better hurry up and approve cutting that check. They about to be in here. Oh, you better hurry up. Yeah, I see them. They're getting closer. Oh, they right outside the door. They thumping. They got the battering rams. Oh, it's a mess. Oh, you better hurry up and sign that check before they get up in here. Hurry up and write this thing before they bash the door in. If you hurry up and sign it right now, I can get it and go. That's what we need to be on. Right there. Nobody asks about the effect of printing money and inflation when they giving away money to non-citizens by the billions in New York and Chicago and California. They're giving it to them folks by the billions. And nobody is yelling and screaming about how much it costs and inflation and everything else. Ain't nobody jumping out their damn skin then. We show up, oh, that's too much. We can't do that right there. Okay, it wasn't too much for these illegals. Oh, that's an emergency. So is this. That's an emergency. So is this. This is an emergency too. Matter of fact, this is a bigger emergency. It's been waiting longer. We're not taking any more excuses. We're not changing the subject. We're not changing the topic. We ain't changing a damn thing. This is what it is. This is the only subject on the table. Everything else has to be framed through that lens. So when I told you all tonight the subject is reparations, I wanted to back it up and show you this is how serious I am. Jason, there's other folks talking about this. I understand that. Ooh, more people might be watching them than you. So be it. This is not a popularity contest. Our survival and our agenda is not up for a vote, and it's not a popularity contest. I'm not doing this for ratings. Hell yeah, I know there are a lot sexier things out there. But please understand something. It is not going to be the masses that set us ahead. It is not going to be the masses that make this happen. That's not going to occur. The masses are going to follow the select few. But the select few got to be solid, organized, and on code. I can't be the only person who knows the talking points. I'm giving them to you all now. It has been explained to you exhaustively. All you got to do is reference this program. I've literally dealt with every reparations subject you can name. Now you know what it is. Somebody tries to throw you a swerve and, hey, let's make it about money. Let's make it about land, Bitcoin, farming, stalks of corn, books. Now you know why the answer is no. Right out the gate, no. That's all that manipulation and stuff. They can manipulate currency there. They didn't steal land from us. They didn't steal Bitcoin. They didn't steal gold. They took money. If you don't want yours, sign it over for me. I'm not going to get put in no trick bag. What about gold? Well, we've already covered that. If you had $1,000 of it back in 1985 and $1,000 worth of Microsoft stock, Amazon stock, Macintosh stock, Berkshire Hathaway stock, which one would be worth more today? All right, conversation about gold is over. Conversation about gold is over. Now you've had your plebiscite. Everybody understands what it is and why it is. So the next time anybody wants to know anything about reparations, now I'll just direct you to this program. You can go ahead and check that out. And if you got any more questions, anything at all about reparations or what it is or how it works, who qualifies for it and why, what's the rationale, now you know what it is and why it is, and it lines up perfectly with everything else. Whether you are FBA or not, everybody knows what's going on now. And you go from there. We're going to go ahead and wrap things up here tonight. If you are new here to the Black Channel, welcome to the Haven of Intelligent Black Thought. We do this every weekend, holidays, some days in between. Click that red subscribe button, click that yellow notification bell, join us each and every time that we're here. If you haven't been to our website, blackchannelfilms.com, go check out our best-selling documentary work, 7 a.m. Gentrified Race War, blackchannelfilms.com. And there's still time for those of you who have not contributed to support our newest documentary, 8 a.m., the highly anticipated follow-up to our original groundbreaking documentary, 7 a.m. 8 a.m. is coming. The link to our crowdfunding is in the description of this video. Also posted in the chat room there as well. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to tonight's program. Thank you all for liking, subscribing, and sharing. Thank you for listening live or recorded. And this concludes tonight's broadcast of the Black Channel. I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, the Black Authority. And until next time, my brothers and my sisters from around the world, remember, black is the future, and the future is reparations.